Chapter 959. Sorry, I got too excited. I just received news from the Nine Realms Essences that True Ocean Saint and Black Dragon Saint haven't completely perished. They still have a chance to reincarnate, but they've lost their wills and consciousness, said Night Sorrow. That's great. Yi Linghuan said happily. The deaths of True Sea Saint and Black Dragon Saint could be said to be the pain and heartache of the nine-domain world. Knowing that the two of them were still alive in this world, everyone felt a little more at ease. This also shows that in future battles, soul defense and soul attacks will be very important. If there are no secret techniques, I'll think of something, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a moment. Everyone nodded. While they were chatting, the higher-ups of the commander's residence also came to Night Sorrow's residence. Fortunately, Night Sorrow's residence was big enough to accommodate some people. Why is everyone here? Night Sorrow greeted them with a smile. If we didn't come, you wouldn't have gone to the commander's residence, Tai Shu Yen said with a smile. It's not a big deal now. You can deal with it as you see fit, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Commander, I plan to step down. After entering the Saint Realm, there won't be any bottlenecks for a period of time. I have to seize the time to cultivate, Tai Shu Yen said. That's true. Then let's make some arrangements. Elder Jun will be promoted to Vice Commander. What about you, Zhu Jillian? Night Sorrow looked at Zhu Jillian. I want to cultivate. I need to reach the peak of the Saint King realm. The Nether Realm's Cloud-Slashing King can do some things. You can make the arrangements, Zhu Jillian said. Yi Shang thought for a moment, then looked at Yun Tianlong and Jun Xuanji and made the arrangements. That's fine. Vice Commander Yun and Vice Commander Jun notified Zhu Yun King to become an elder in the commander's residence. Afterward, Xia Lanjun, who was the supreme elder of the commander's residence, asked about the arrangements for the Saint Crystals obtained from this war. High-level venerables and venerables with potential will be arranged first. Venerables who have fought bitterly for the Nine Regions world will have priority, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a moment. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, everyone nodded. Night Sorrow's arrangements were very reasonable. My only regret is the death of my two old friends and the imprisonment of the Moon Empress, Xia Lanjun said. Night Sorrow shook his head and told him about True Ocean Saint and Black Dragon Saint's souls not being destroyed, and that Night Sky was doing well. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, everyone felt more at ease. Lu Qin then said that the resources she obtained this time were only some healing pills and some resources that could instantly replenish energy. There were almost no resources that could assist in cultivation. These resources will be used as strategic reserves. Also, I've obtained some resources as well. As for those weapons, I'll be distributing them to my brothers in the God-Slaying Squad. I won't be handing them over, Night Sorrow said. No one disagreed. It could be said that Night Sorrow had dominated the war. After telling Night Sorrow that True Ocean Saint and Black Dragon Saint's funerals would be in 3 days, and that the Three Realms celebration would be in 7 days, the commander's residence's people all left. That was because Night Sorrow also needed to rest and reunite with his family. Everyone knew that Night Sorrow had been under a lot of pressure during this time. After the commander's residence's people left, the God-Slaying Squad's people returned from the central prefecture. Yin Yanxiao also returned to the city in the sky. Brother, you're very powerful. You killed several peak holy kings. Right now, the immortal holy king Night Sorrow's name is like thunder in the Nine Regions world, said Yin Yanxiao to Night Sorrow. How have you been recently? Has your cultivation been smooth? Asked Night Sorrow with a smile. Of course it's been smooth. My cultivation has been smooth, said Yin Yanxiao. She was already a mid-stage venerable and was the most outstanding child of the Sacred Hall's batch. After the family enjoyed dinner, they chatted on the viewing platform of the residence. When Yi Wuyo asked about the exchange of hostages, Night Sorrow thought about it and told him about the situation and his plans. Son, the Nine Regions world is our territory. It's already so difficult for us to win a war, yet you still want to go to other people's territory. Yu Qing was a little unwilling, mainly because it was too dangerous. Mother, if I don't go out, I'll be stuck at a bottleneck for the rest of my life. I won't be able to achieve anything higher. I don't want that. Also, the matter of the Moon Empress must be prepared for a rainy day, said Night Sorrow. You're a Saint King and have a lifespan of 10,000 years. There's nothing to worry about, said Yuqing. Mother, I have a doppelganger similar to my true body in the heaven-sealing Grand Hall. As long as the 9 regions world is not destroyed, my doppelganger will not be destroyed. If something happens to me, that doppelganger will be my true body, said Yishang. So that's how it is. Alright, Mother won't stop you, but your wife can't come with you, said Yuqing. Yuqing's consideration was based on the fact that the whole family needed someone to stay together. I understand, Night Sorrow nodded. Over the next few days, after attending the funerals of Zhenhai Sheng and Black Dragon Saint, Night Sorrow accompanied his family and didn't care about anything else. In the past, because he had been worried about the massacre, he had been working hard on his cultivation, so Night Sorrow didn't spend time with his family. In addition, Night Sorrow told his parents that he wanted to resign from his position as commander and that he would leave the 9 regions world. He wouldn't have time to manage things, so he might as well let someone else do it. Yi Wuyo and Yuqing both supported Night Sorrow's idea. In their hearts, they didn't need their child to have great achievements, as long as he was happy. In addition, Night Sorrow had done everything he could. Night Sorrow's 3 wives also supported him, and Xueshi didn't have any objections. Wu Lingfei, who stayed in the city in the sky, also didn't express any opinions. Night Sorrow relaxed for a few days. Taixian came to invite Night Sorrow to the commander's residence. Today was the day of the celebration. Night Sorrow brought his family and the members of the god-slaying squad to the commander's residence. At this time, the commander's residence had been rebuilt, and it was even more majestic and domineering. The square in front of the commander's residence had also been expanded, on the basis of the original Taiqing city square. What made Yishang flabbergasted was that there was a 9 zhang tall statue erected at the front of the plaza. It was him with the reincarnation spear on his back. His white battle robe fluttered in the wind as if it was about to come to life. How is it? This is the work of the Eastern Profound Region's sculptor, Lei Hua, said Xia Lanjun with a smile. This isn't appropriate. Victory in the war is the result of everyone's efforts, not mine alone, said Night Sorrow. He had never thought that a statue of himself would appear. There's nothing inappropriate about it. You killed 3 Saint Kings and a peak Saint King ferocious beast. You were the one who dominated the battle. Without your help, the 9 regions world would be in a mess today. Long Xianqing said. Above, Commander, go on the stage and say a few words, said Jun Xuanji. Night Sorrow thought for a moment, then walked to the platform in front of the square and looked at the crowd. After seeing Night Sorrow appear, the originally joyous crowd quieted down. This time, our 9 regions world won the war. It wasn't easy, and we paid the price of blood and lives. Here, I thank the heroes who fought for our 9 regions world. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he bowed twice to the sky. Withstanding the great calamity of slaughter is a new beginning for our 9 regions world. Everything will be better, and I will continue to work hard. However, from today onwards, I will no longer be the commander. I will also start a new chapter in my life, said Night Sorrow. At this moment, everyone looked at Night Sorrow in a daze. No one had thought that Night Sorrow would say that last sentence. No one could accept it because Night Sorrow was their backbone. Speak. Chapter 960. That won't do. Commander, what are you doing? Long Xiansheng and the others were already on the platform. I'm really not suitable to be a commander anymore. There are still many things I need to do. The Tiannan dynasty of the Tianxian world suffered a loss this time and will not let it go. In addition, I also need to break the shackles of the 9 regions world, the shackles that prevent us from entering the Tianxian realm, Yishang said. But Commander, other than you, it'll be very difficult for others to manage the 3 spatial worlds. It'll be very difficult to convince the masses. Long Xiancheng looked at the people present, mainly Zhu Jiuyun and Jun Xuanji. You should still be the commander. The vice commander and elders of the commander's residence can help you share the burden, said Jun Xuanji. It's not suitable to not do anything and still occupy the position, said Knight Sorrow as he shook his head. At this time, the crowd also became restless. Everyone knew that the commander was the immortal Holy King, Knight Sorrow. Under his leadership, the nine-domain world had developed at an unprecedented rate. Now that Knight Sorrow wanted to retreat, it had a huge impact on everyone. Everyone, don't worry. The commander's residence will have a perfect solution for this matter, said Long Xiancheng. Yes, everyone, don't worry. No matter when, no matter where, as long as the nine-domain world needs me, I, Knight Sorrow, will definitely stand up. Even if I die in battle, I won't take half a step back, promised Knight Sorrow. Everyone who responded to Knight Sorrow bowed in greeting. At this time, Knight Sorrow once again felt the power of virtue enter his body. Outside his spirit sea, the golden halo behind his head became even more conspicuous. After Knight Sorrow returned the bow, he followed the people from the commander's residence back into the commander's residence. Commander, none of us can accept your sudden decision, said Jun Xuanji. But I'm really not suitable. I plan to go to the limitless realm and then enter the profound heaven world. They're trying to kill us. This is an insult to us. I can't tolerate this, Yishang said. But this has nothing to do with you being the commander. We only need the vice commander and elders. If there's anything, we can discuss it. Don't talk about stepping down. That will really disappoint the cultivators and commoners of the three realms, said Yun Tianlong. We all know that it's been hard on you, but the commander's residence and the three realms need a pillar of support. If someone else were to be the commander, it would be hard to convince the masses. It would be detrimental to the stability of the three realms, said Xian Wenxiu. He trusted Yi Shang, so he was worried that a change in commander would affect the profound mysteries realm. Hearing everyone's words, Yi Shang could only nod. He couldn't refuse. Then, a grand banquet was held, and the real celebration began. After drinking with everyone, Yi Shang brought his wife back to the city in the sky. No need to worry. I'm just going to take a look. I'll come back once I understand the situation, said Knight Sorrow. He wouldn't bring the girls even if Yu Qing agreed. After hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Yang Lei thought about it and didn't say anything. She knew that this matter couldn't be discussed. It wasn't just Yu Qing's idea. Knight Sorrow didn't agree either. Knight Sorrow didn't go to the Wuji world directly. He hadn't cultivated the myriad Dao treasured tome to the peak yet. Inside the space-time treasure pagoda, Knight Sorrow meditated inside the dragon cauldron to recover. At the same time, he checked the situation outside. At this moment, in the Wuji world's Wuji city, a phantom appeared in the sky-bearing palace. Greetings, Realm Lord, said the two elders in the sky-bearing palace as they bowed. The two of you, go to the spatial barrier area that connects to the nine-domain world and check it out. There's an energy fluctuation there, said the phantom before disappearing. Knight Sorrow meditated peacefully inside the dragon cauldron. He knew that this was the first risk. The other risk was when he went through the transfer array from the Wuji world to the Heaven Profound world. If nothing happened, then he could enter the Heaven Profound world safely. And the beginning of the second book. Chapter 961. Knight Sorrow's soul power was tyrannical. He had been scanning the outside of the dragon cauldron. He had patience now, and he was willing to exchange patience for safety. 6 hours later, a group of people appeared. They were patrolling near the spatial barrier. Knight Sorrow realized that the leader was a 7-star Saint King. Knight Sorrow knew that this was not the Realm Lord of the Wuji world. The Realm Lord of the Wuji world would not be in the middle of a stage. He would definitely be at the peak of a stage. This group of people left after checking one round. Knight Sorrow hid very well, so it was impossible for him to be discovered. Unless the Realm Lord came and used the world's origin power to suppress and search bit by bit, it would be impossible to discover Night Sorrow. This group of people left. Night Sorrow emerged from the ground. He kept the space-splitting spear back into his body and flew forward. Night Sorrow wanted to find a city to understand the situation first. Otherwise, it would be easy to recognize that he was not a native of the Wuji world. As for being recognized, Night Sorrow was not worried. He had reached the realm of returning to one's original state. Those below the high-level Saint King would not be able to detect his cultivation. After half a day, Night Sorrow entered a city. There were guards guarding the city. However, seeing that Night Sorrow was dressed in a tolerant white robe and did not have any cultivation, they did not even ask. After entering the city, Night Sorrow found a tea house. After asking for a pot of tea, he listened to the conversations of others. He realized that this Wuji world was very similar to the Nine Regions world. They were all mainly humans. After listening for a while, Night Sorrow left the tea house and went to the main street of this small city. He then bought a small map. This was a small city. Naturally, it was impossible for there to be anything too high level. Night Sorrow looked at the map and rushed towards the nearest big city. This time, Night Sorrow didn't go through the city gate. It was illogical for a person without any cultivation to run around outside the city. The quality of the city guards in a big city was also different from that of a small one. The people of the small city were simple and honest. It was normal for the guards of the big city to look for trouble. Night Sorrow did not want to cause any trouble. He found a hole in the city wall's defense and used the space law to cut into the big city. This was a cultivator's city. It was comparable to the royal cities of the various dynasties in the Nine Regions world's Grand Clarity domain. Night Sorrow leisurely strolled on the streets. At this moment, he revealed his cultivation level to be at the 5th step, which was suitable for the cultivators here. In a shop, Night Sorrow bought an entire map of the everlasting world. Then, he found a large tea house and asked for a pot of tea. He slowly drank while listening to the conversations of others. Tea houses and restaurants were the easiest places to gather information. There were all sorts of people here. Night Sorrow's soul power enveloped this place. Everyone's conversation was heard by him. While listening to Night Sorrow, he looked at the map and compared it with the conversations of the customers. The main city of the everlasting world was the everlasting city. The city that intersected with the heaven profound world was the true extreme city. These were the two largest cities in the everlasting world. This flying cloud city was the closest city to the Nine Regions world. At this moment, in the heaven profound world, in the everlasting world's two extreme city, there was a person sitting in the city lord's mansion. This person's body was filled with fire energy. He was the Emperor Lord of the Sky South Empire. I am Shang Tianfeng of the Sky South Empire. I would like to discuss some matters with the World Lord of your everlasting world. Please inform him, said Shang Tianfeng to an elder sitting in the main seat. This elder was a 5-star holy king, the city lord of two extreme city. A 5-star holy king's cultivation wasn't much in the heaven profound world, but no one dared to casually provoke two extreme city. Even the major powers of the heaven profound world wouldn't. The city lord of two extreme city could be easily killed, but the revenge of the everlasting world's world lord was something no one was willing to accept. The everlasting world's world lord was undying within the everlasting world. His true body was in the everlasting world. If his clone came out to take revenge, no power would be able to accept it. So it's Emperor Shang. What is it? Tell me roughly so I can give the World Lord an explanation. Otherwise, the World Lord would have come here for nothing. The elder sitting in the main seat was neither haughty nor humble. He was nothing in front of Shang Tianfeng. Shang Tianfeng could crush him at any time, but he had a backer behind him. It's like this. My Sky South Empire's people are in the Nine Regions world, and they also have hostages in the hands of my Sky South Empire. Thus, both sides wish to exchange hostages. Shang Tianfeng directly stated his intentions. The exchange of hostages will be carried out in our everlasting world? Asked the elder. He was a family member of the everlasting world's world lord, Yinwu Absolute. He had a very high position in the everlasting world. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to become the city lord of Two Extremes City. The crux of the problem is that our experts cannot enter the everlasting world. Once we enter the everlasting world, there will be conflict. Furthermore, if the other side isn't confident, they won't trade with us. Thus, I want to discuss with your everlasting world. If you can assist my Sky South Empire in exchanging hostages, then my Sky South Empire is willing to give you resources to express our gratitude. If you can open up a path for us to enter the 9 regions world, then your everlasting world can obtain 5 cities of my Sky South Empire, said Shang Tianfeng. Then Emperor Shang, please wait a moment. I need to return and meet with the World Lord. Men, bring Emperor Shang to the VIP building to rest. Yinwu Absolute waved his hand and called for someone to bring Shang Tianfeng to rest. Shang Tianfeng hadn't left the Sky South Empire for many years. If there was anything, he would directly give orders. However, this time, it was related to his son's life. He had no choice but to personally come. After Yinwu Absolute spoke to his assistant, he took a transportation formation back to the everlasting world. Following another transportation formation, he arrived at the everlasting city. In a small courtyard not far from the sky-bearing palace in Everlasting City, a middle-aged man and a woman were playing chess. Absolute Marshal, come take a look. Is there any chance of winning this game? The middle-aged man waved his hand at Yinwu Absolute. And #new quick as start be the middle-aged man was wearing a long robe. Although he had 2 small tufts of mustache, he appeared very amiable. His aura was very calm. He also looked very handsome. His black hair was simply tied behind his head. If people saw this person on the streets, they would only give him a few more glances. They would definitely not think of anything else. However, the truth was that he was the ruler of the everlasting world, the everlasting world's world lord, Yan Tianpe. World Lord, please don't make fun of me. This time, I have come for an important matter. Yinwu Absolute bowed and said. Even if it's an important matter, we must finish this game of chess. Even if we lose, we must lose openly. We cannot give up halfway. Yan Tianpe waved his hand at Yinwu Absolute to have him sit down and continued playing chess. Tianpe, you handle the matter first. The woman sitting in front of Yan Tianpe said. The woman had a graceful figure but she was wearing a veil. That's fine too. What matter is worthy of you personally coming back? Yan Tianpe asked Yinwu Absolute as he brewed tea. The Sky Profound World and the 9 Domain World want to make a hostage trade. They want us to cooperate. Yinwu Absolute explained the matter in detail. Just at this moment, the woman sitting in front of Yan Tianpe trembled and stood up. Calm down first. Yan Tianpe nodded slightly at the woman and smiled. Interesting. Seems like the Sky South Empire is going to harvest the 9 Domain World once every 10,000 years. However, the result is that they suffered a great loss. Speak. Chapter 962. That should be the case. He's also an important person from the South Sky Empire. Otherwise, Shang Tianfeng wouldn't have personally come and paid such a huge price, said Yan Wujue. Interesting. Looks like the 9 Domain World is no longer the same 9 Domain World as before. It's not easy to capture an important person from the South Sky Empire, muttered Tan Tianpe. Then, how should I reply? Asked Yan Wujue. Go back and tell Shang Tianfeng that we can protect the hostages. However, it's impossible to open up a path. If the 9 Domain World can attack, why would we need them? As for the price, you can discuss it. It's fine to be ruthless. The South Sky Empire is extremely rich, said Yan Tianpe without any hesitation. Okay. Let them bring the hostages in, nodded Yan Wujue. Tell them that if a Saint King dares to enter the Wuji world, kill him, said Yan Tianpe. His words caused the space to tremble. But how do we contact the 9-domain world? Asked Yen Wujue. Easy. They've already arrived at the Wuji world. Moreover, he's a pretty good expert. Go to the Wuji City Lord's mansion and tell the various City Lord's manors to announce that I want to meet him. I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to exchange the hostages, said Yen Tianpe. Most v. New chapters versus Yen Wujue nodded and left the courtyard. The 9-domain world has risen. I can feel that the laws of the 9-domain world have been perfected. It's repelling and suppressing all the surrounding worlds. Moreover, there's a world lord, said Yen Tianpe to the woman opposite him. The 9-domain world has risen. The 9-domain world can actually withstand the great massacre calamity. Those who died can rest in peace. The veil on the woman's face was soaked with tears. I hope you don't hate me, said Yen Tianpe softly. I understand, nodded the woman. Night Sorrow couldn't go to the Wuji city because that was the core of the Wuji world. The Wuji world's world lord was there. If he got too close, he would be easily discovered. After keeping the map, Night Sorrow teleported to the Two Extreme City. He planned to find a chance to trick the guards of the teleportation array into the profound sky world. While strolling around the city, Night Sorrow saw the announcement from the City Lord's mansion. The Realm Lord wanted to meet the people of the 9 regions world to discuss the exchange of hostages. He had no ill intentions. Upon seeing this notice, Night Sorrow was a little stunned. However, he soon understood that someone had investigated him when he tore open space and entered the Wuji world. This meant that the Wuji world's realm master already knew that someone had come from the 9 regions world. After thinking about it for a while, Night Sorrow felt that he could go. The words of a world sector lord carried enormous weight. However, Night Sorrow wasn't completely unprepared. Once again, he returned to the spatial barrier. His main body entered the space-time pagoda and hid within the spatial barrier. Next, his soul avatar arrived at Everlasting City and headed straight for the City Lord's mansion. When the City Lord's mansion's men saw Night Sorrow, they immediately went into a state of alert. Night Sorrow of the 9 regions world has seen the notice and has come to pay a visit to the limitless world lord. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards the black-robed old man who walked out of the City Lord's mansion. Please enter the City Lord's mansion and wait for a moment. The old man looked at Night Sorrow and said. Be more courteous. Bring him to me. A voice rang out in the air. Yes, Realm Lord. The black-robed old man bowed towards the air and gestured for Night Sorrow to enter. He was very shocked because Night Sorrow was a peak stage Saint King. Under the lead of the black-robed old man, Night Sorrow entered the courtyard where Yen Tianpe and the white-robed woman were playing chess. I am Yen Tianpe. Yen Tianpe introduced himself to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow of the 9 regions world greets the Flame World Lord. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Yen Tianpe. Your soul clone is at the peak of the Saint King realm. Your bone age is a little special. Your true bone age is less than 100 years. Even if you include some illusions, your bone age is less than 1,000 years. You are a rare genius. Yen Tianpe looked at Night Sorrow and explained Night Sorrow's situation. The fact that I didn't come is a little disrespectful to the Flame World Lord. However, I have no choice. I have some concerns. Night Sorrow nodded. This Yen Tianpe spoke casually and wasn't overbearing. I didn't guess wrongly. You are the Realm Lord of the 9 regions world. Young man, you are very capable. Have a seat. If I said I have no ill intentions, then I have no ill intentions. Yen Tianpe gestured for Yi Xuan to enter. Night Sorrow nodded and sat down. Since the other party had no ill intentions, they had to talk. The 9 regions world won the great massacre calamity that occurs once every 10,000 years, right? Yen Tianpe poured a cup of water for Night Sorrow and asked. They won. They killed all of them and captured the Prince of the Sky's South Empire. However, they want to exchange the captured clansmen of our Night clan. They are clansmen who entered the Sky Profound world in the past. Night Sorrow said. Could it be that 100 years ago, your 9 regions world used the Wuji world to enter the Sky Profound world? Yen Tianpa thought for a while and said. It should be. I'm not very clear about the details. I have never seen this ancestor before. Night Sorrow said. You haven't seen him before. It seems that I didn't see wrongly. Your true age is very young. Let's put it this way. I also don't like the Sky South Empire. They used resources to ask me for help and wanted to exchange hostages in the Wuji world. They want me to guarantee the safety of the exchange. Are you willing to exchange? After all, the Prince of the Sky South Empire is more valuable. Yen Tianpa looked at Night Sorrow and asked. I am willing. In my eyes, the Prince of the Sky South Empire is not as important as a strand of hair from my Night clan. However, if it's the main resources of the Flame world, I might not have them. Night Sorrow expressed his attitude. Ha, I like this attitude of yours. I don't want your resources, I just want theirs. In that case, you can go and prepare. It doesn't matter if this sovereign comes. This sovereign won't have any thoughts about you. If I did, I would have attacked your 9 regions world long ago. Yen Tianpa laughed. Many thanks, Flame World Master. Here are 2 jugs of wine to express my gratitude. Night Sorrow took out 2 jugs of wine and placed them on the table. He then turned and left. Seeing Night Sorrow leave, the veiled woman stood up. Is this the youth of the 9 regions world? His soul clone is at the peak of the Saint King realm. His body is filled with blood chi and his laws rippled. When I tried to investigate, I was directly dissolved. He's very strong. Yen Tianpa said. Tianpa, don't stop me from going back. I must go back. The woman looked at Yen Tianpa and said. I won't stop you anymore. I didn't let you go back a few years ago because I was worried about your safety. However, you should wait until the exchange of hostages is completed. I can also go with you to the 9 regions world to take a look. Yen Tianpa said. That won't do. You are the realm master of the Wuji world and your clone is currently busy. It will be dangerous for your main body to go. The white-clothed woman said. You don't see people as good as me. Night Sorrow looked straight at me and didn't have any evil aura. He's not that kind of person. Yen Tianpa said. Speak. Chapter 963. If he comes again, I'll talk to him. Hiding here while the 9 regions world is in danger, I don't have the face to face him, said the white-robed woman. I don't have the face to do what I should do for you. It's enough, said Yen Tianpa. After Night Sorrow's soul avatar met up with his main body, he returned to the 9 regions world and went to Sky City. Why are you back so quickly? Aoi looked at Night Sorrow in astonishment. Things have come to an end. I'm here to bring someone back. Yi Shan explained the situation in the Wuji world. It shouldn't be a problem. If a world master goes back on his word, it would be immoral. He wouldn't do such a thing, said Wu Lingfei. Then let's just wait for the news, said Night Sorrow. At this time, Night Sorrow arrived at the place where Shang Jingchun was imprisoned. There's progress in the exchange of hostages. Now enter my spatial treasure. We'll go to Sky City, said Night Sorrow to Shang Jingchun. I'm not going to enter your spatial treasure, said Shang Jingchun. You're not afraid that I'll deal with you. The main thing is that it's inconvenient to go to Sky City's spatial turbulence. If you don't want to enter, then let your father send someone to bring the hostages to the 9 regions world, said Night Sorrow. He didn't believe that Shang Jingchun could persist. Wait. Shang Jingchun hesitated for a moment before calling out to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow took out the Spacetime Pagoda and put Shang Jingchun and his maid into the bottom level of the Spacetime Pagoda. After that, Night Sorrow greeted a group of people and left Sky City. After arriving at Nanli Region's spatial barrier, he passed through it and entered Sky City. After arriving at the nearest city, Night Sorrow teleported to Sky City. In the courtyard, Yen Tianpe and the white-robed woman were talking about something. Ha, with the protection of the world energy, this is the true body. Let's sit down and talk. There are still many things to talk about. Of course, it's not me, it's her. Yen Tianpe pointed at the veiled white-clothed woman to Night Sorrow. Su Dao greets Sector Lord. The white-clothed woman bowed slightly towards Night Sorrow. You know me, Su Dao. Night Sorrow was astonished. Then have you heard of the Void Dao Saint King? The white-clothed woman took off her veil, revealing her delicate face. A Saint King of the Void Path is a sage from 10,000 years ago. Wait, are you his descendant? Night Sorrow asked the woman. She was also a mid-level Saint King. No, I am Lin Ruoxu. 10,000 years ago in the Heaven-Sealing Great Hall, I obtained the title of Void Dao. The woman looked at Night Sorrow and said. You are a senior Saint King of the Void Path. Night Sorrow looked at the woman in shock. As the woman spoke, Night Sorrow was stunned. His heart was moved. He bowed deeply towards the woman. Saint King of the Void Path has suffered. Junior Night Sorrow is here to bring you home, to our home. At this moment, Night Sorrow understood everything. That year when the Saint King of the Void Path self-detonated, his soul fell into the turbulence of the shattered space. He was saved by Yen Tianpe who was watching the battle. Because he was heavily injured, he was in a deep sleep for many years. He woke up 300 years ago and with Yen Tianpe's help, he used heavenly treasures to reconstruct his body. Alright, after you are done with your matters, I will go back with you. Lin Ruoxu said. Many thanks to Flame World Lord for taking care of the Sage of the Nine Regions world. In the future, if Flame World Lord needs anything, just send a message to Night Sorrow. I will definitely not reject you. Night Sorrow said. Ha, World Lord Night is very capable. I admire you. How about this? I will not stop World Lord Night from moving around the Wuji world. If I go to the Nine Regions world, don't have any ideas. Yen Tianpe said. Naturally, there is no problem. The Nine Regions world will always welcome Flame World Lord as a guest. Night Sorrow said. Following which, Night Sorrow stayed in the Nine Regions world under Yen Tianpe's arrangements. Lin Ruoxu kept asking Night Sorrow about the Nine Regions world. Night Sorrow explained everything to him. If World Lord was born 10,000 years earlier, then Clear Sky Saint King and Central Continent Saint King wouldn't have to die in battle. This is the regret of our generation. This time, I didn't return in time. I hope World Lord won't blame me. Lin Ruoxu sighed and said. World Lord Knight, you can't blame me. Ruoxu didn't return because she hasn't recovered to the peak of the Saint King realm. There isn't much meaning for her to return. I was the one who stopped her. Yen Tianpe said. How can I have any thoughts? Void Dao Saint King is the sage of our Nine Regions world. Everyone remembers him. Also, Central Continent Saint King is regretful. Clear Sky Saint King has already reincarnated. He is doing very well now. He also participated in this war. Night Sorrow said. He could see that Lin Ruoxu missed Clear Sky Saint King and Central Continent Saint King. Brother Qianhua is still here. Lin Ruoxu stood up and said emotionally. Yes, he has already reincarnated. Night Sorrow nodded. World Lord Night, do your things. Ruoxu won't return. Yen Tianpe said. That's my brother. What are you thinking? Lin Ruoxu glanced at Yen Tianpe and frowned. Ahaha, I didn't say anything just now. Yen Tianpe laughed. At this time, Night Sorrow also understood what was going on. He also laughed. He felt that this matter was pretty good. Night Sorrow rested in the courtyard that Yen Tianpe prepared for him. He couldn't cultivate now because he had reached a bottleneck. If he couldn't touch the will of heaven and earth, he wouldn't be able to enter the king realm. As for Yen Tianpe, Night Sorrow knew that he was a big shot in the king realm because he couldn't see his cultivation. Every day, Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu would look for Night Sorrow to drink tea and chat. The others were all pirated copies. World Lord Knight, with your situation, you have to go to the Sky Profound World or other worlds to have a chance of breaking through. Back then, I also secretly went to the Sky Profound World to break through my bottleneck. However, you have to be careful. The worlds don't have human feelings. Everything is about benefits. Yen Tianpe said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that this was priceless advice. Half a month later, the black-robed Yenwu Absolute came. World Lord, the matter is settled. We asked them for 300 Saint Spirit Stones. They felt the pain but agreed. Their people and hostages are in the Two Extreme City. Yenwu Absolute said to Yen Tianpe. Let them bring their people to the plaza of the Sky-Bearing Palace and wait. Tell them that this time, we are exchanging hostages. If they dare to make a move, I will definitely kill them. Moreover, I will kill my way to their nest. Yen Tianpe said. Domineering and overbearing. Night Sorrow knew that Yen Tianpe had the qualifications. He and Shang Tianfeng were both big shots in the king realm. Yen Tianpe had an advantage. He had a world of his own. He could send his clones out to fight. His original body was immortal. If he fought unscrupulously, the Sky South Empire wouldn't be able to withstand it. World Lord Knight, don't make a move. If you do, it will be hard for me. If you want to fight, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Yen Tianpe said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow understands. I will not make things difficult for World Lord Flame. Night Sorrow nodded. Speak. Chapter 964. Not long after, Yen Tianpe nodded towards Yishang. Their people have arrived. Realm Lord Yi, you can bring your people over. I won't show my face. Ruoxu, you follow them. If they don't keep their word, you can kill them. Wu Ju and the others know you and will cooperate with you. Okay, then we'll go. Lin Ruoxu nodded to Yen Tianpe. Night Sorrow also brought Shang Jingchun and the female saint out of the pagoda. Shang Jingchun's limbs had already recovered. As a peak saint king, a little external injury was nothing. Night Sorrow and Lin Ruoxu brought their people to the Sky-Bearing Palace. Night Sorrow saw many people in front of the palace. There were people from the Tiannan dynasty holding Yi Tian down. Since you're exchanging hostages in the Wuji world, you have to follow our rules. You have to hand the hostages over to us. Before that, you have to remove the tricks you used on the hostages. Although you're a peak Saint King, you have to be honest. Remember, Saint Kings don't have the right to be arrogant in the Wuji world. Yen Wujue looked around and his gaze landed on Shang Jingchun. Yishang retracted Shang Jingchun's void true qi from the Saintess Dantian and glared at Yishang. Shang Jingchun walked over to the guards of the Everlasting World City Lord's mansion. He didn't dare to act rashly. This was the Everlasting City. Peak Saint Kings didn't have the right to be arrogant. This was the Everlasting World's world. The Tiannan dynasty also handed Yi Tian over to the City Lord's mansion's guards. Do you think there's a problem? If there's no problem, you can return to your own camp, said Yen Wujue. Shang Jingchun and Yi Tian knew whether there was a problem or not. They both returned to their own camps. Night Sorrow, the enmity between us isn't over. I'll definitely destroy the 9 regions world. Shang Jingchun looked at Night Sorrow coldly. This was a great humiliation to him. He knew that Shang Tianfeng had saved him because of their father-son relationship. But if he didn't do it well, it would be impossible for him to have any power in the Tiannan dynasty in the future. You want to fight? Then you can tell everyone in the everlasting world that our battle to the death has nothing to do with anyone. Do you dare? Night Sorrow looked coldly at Shang Jingchun. Let's go. Shang Jingchun coldly snorted and left with his people. How would he dare to fight? He knew that if he was not a king-tier cultivator, he would not be a match for Night Sorrow. He had witnessed Night Sorrow's battle prowess with his own eyes. The two peak stage Saint Kings that he had brought along and Kue Long had all been killed by Night Sorrow. Remember, if I can take care of you once, I can take care of you twice. You better not fall into my hands, because next time, you won't have a chance to live, Night Sorrow said. Shang Jingchun left without looking back. No matter how he fought back, it was useless. Night Sorrow had asked him if he dared to fight, and he had nothing else to say. Many thanks. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Yen Wujue and the others. RZ version, World Lord Knight is too polite. Yen Wujue cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow. After that, Night Sorrow and Lin Ruoxu brought Yi Tian back to the courtyard that Yen Tianpa had arranged for them. Moon Empress, you've suffered. Night Sorrow bowed to Yi Tian. It's nothing. Without your help, I would still be in their cage. Yi Tian shook his head. Moon Empress, my grandfather is Yi Linghuan. I'm your junior, said Night Sorrow. Linghuan's grandson. You're Linghuan's grandson. Yi Tian was a bit emotional. Back in the cage, he had been muddle-headed and hadn't heard the conversation between Yi Linghuan and Night Sorrow. Yes. Rest for a while, and then we'll return to the Nine Regions world. Night Sorrow looked at Yi Tian. Yi Tian's cultivation base was still at the peak of the Saint Realm. Because he had been imprisoned after leaving the Nine Regions world, his cultivation base hadn't advanced. There's no need. I'm in good condition. Yi Tian said. All right. Senior, are you coming back with me? Night Sorrow nodded towards Yi Tian and then looked at Lin Ruoxu. Yes, I'll go with you. Lin Ruoxu nodded. I'll go too. Yen Tianpa also spoke. Then the group left the Everlasting City. After a few teleportation arrays, they arrived at the spatial barrier of the Nine Regions world. Let's set up a teleportation array in the future. That way, we can teleport directly. Flying from Flying Cloud City is really troublesome, said Yen Tianpa. Night Sorrow didn't say anything. This was a matter of the Everlasting City. He couldn't interfere. Soon after, Night Sorrow's energy enveloped Yi Tian. Yen Tianpa brought Lin Ruoxu along as he tore through space and traversed through the chaotic flow of space. Soon, the group arrived at the spatial barrier of the Nine Regions world. Night Sorrow tore through space and entered the Nine Regions world. However, there was a problem. Yen Tianpa couldn't enter. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't enter the Nine Regions world. The area he tried to break through was the spatial turbulence. The Nine Regions world kept rejecting him. Night Sorrow controlled the Nine Regions world's source energy to stabilize the space. At the same time, he communicated with the Nine Regions origin pearl. Only then did Yen Tianpa enter the Nine Regions world. The laws of the Nine Regions world are too strong. If it weren't for your control, I wouldn't have been able to enter. Yen Tianpa turned around and looked at the spatial barrier. Yes. Now that Saint Kings can't enter the Nine Regions world, it can be said that the Nine Regions world is very safe. Night Sorrow said. It seems that the Nine Regions world is of a higher level than the Everlasting City. The Everlasting City can only resist King Realm cultivators. It can't stop Saint Kings from entering. Yen Tianpa looked up at the sky of the Nine Regions world and said. Then, Night Sorrow led the group to the city in the sky. This is my home. Elder Ling Lan, go to Night Moon City and inform them that Lord Moon Empress has returned. Also, ask the Divine Moon Emperor to bring Senior Qianhua here. Tell them that we are meeting with old friends. Night Sorrow instructed Yi Ling Lan. Following this, Yi Shang led everyone to his own residence. Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing both came to greet him. Yi Tian had never seen Yi Wuyo before, but he was very happy to see a junior at this time. Moon Empress Great Ancestor, these are my 3 wives. Night Sorrow introduced his wives to Yi Tian. Yi Tian was very excited because Night Moon had a successor. While everyone was chatting, Night Moon's Emperor and Yi Qianhua came. Night Moon's Emperors and Yi Linghuan all knelt down to greet Yi Tian. Yi Qianhua's eyes were fixed on Lin Ruosu. After Night Moon finished greeting, he opened his mouth. Are you little sister Ruosu? I am brother Qianhua. I am Ruosu. Lin Ruosu's face was crying. The battle that year was too tragic. The three Saint Kings who were as close as brothers never met again. Then, Night Sorrow stood up and told everyone about Lin Ruosu's identity. At this time, everyone present bowed. Because the Void Dao Saint King was a hero of the Nine Regions world. He was a senior and had to be respected. Also, let me introduce this person. He is a friend of the Void Dao Saint King, the Flame World Lord of the Everlasting City. Next, we can be friends with the Everlasting City. This way, it won't be a problem if we want to go to the mysterious sky world. Night Sorrow said. Say. Chapter 965. Everyone cupped their hands. The World Master of a world had a noble status. After chatting for a while, Night Moon's people brought Yi Tian away. Yi Wuyo and his wife also went over. However, Night Sorrow didn't go. He was still accompanying Yan Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu. In addition, Night Sorrow didn't have any feelings for Yi Tian. He had only seen him once in the previous battle. This was only the second time. Your place isn't bad. Give us a place to stay. Ruoxu, bring me around, said Yan Tianpe. Sure. But can you see if you can set up a world transfer array? That way, it'll be more convenient for our Nine Regions world to communicate with the Wuji world, said Lin Ruoxu. Since you've asked, of course. I just happen to have 2 world transfer crystals. We can set them up. Our 2 worlds are close to each other. We can set them up in large cities. That's convenient. But for safety, we have to guard them well. That way, we can avoid some trouble, said Yan Tianpe. Okay. Then I'll have to trouble World Master, said Night Sorrow with a smile. It's nothing. Sometimes, I'm very unyielding. But sometimes, I have to compromise, said Yan Tianpe. You're speaking nonsense again. World Master Night, World Master Flame and I will just walk around. We haven't seen the Nine Regions world for 10,000 years. Lin Ruoxu stood up. Then, Lin Ruoxu and Yan Tianpe left. Night Sorrow, what's going on? Asked Yang Lei. That's the situation. You should know, said Night Sorrow with a smile. Then, everyone laughed. Now that Yi Tian was rescued, Night Sorrow didn't have any pressure. He could truly settle down. Night Sorrow brought his 3 wives, Xueshi and Father Gu to the lake to drink tea and chat. Tianyu, Yi Mei, and the god-slaying team had all gone out to train. They were all improving their combat strength. Night Sorrow, I told you when you were young that you had to be responsible. However, you almost got into trouble. Is it appropriate for you to let Miss Xueshi follow you like this? Old Man Gu looked at Night Sorrow and said. Dad, this isn't Night Sorrow's problem. I just think this is good. Xueshi pulled her father's arm and said. Sigh, then you guys handle it yourselves. Old Man Gu sighed. There were some things that he couldn't understand. Pops, you have to work hard and strive for Type 5. Night Sorrow looked at Papa Gu and took out some Origin spiritual liquid and Life spiritual liquid for him. Father Gu nodded. He knew that Night Sorrow didn't need him to have much combat strength. He just needed him to have a high cultivation and a long lifespan. In the following days, Night Sorrow was very relaxed. He spent every day with his 3 wives and Xueshi. Night Sorrow did not know why Xueshi insisted. As long as Xueshi asked, he would give her a name. On this day, when Night Sorrow was drinking tea, Yan Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu returned to Sky City. Realm Lord Knight's life is not bad. However, you still have to pursue something. Go to Sky Profound World or other large worlds and find a place where there is no one and slowly cultivate. After entering the King Realm, you can come back and cultivate slowly. At that time, you can send a soul clone out and do big things. Yen Tianpe looked at Night Sorrow and said, I will spend this time with my family. Night Sorrow said, you did well in this aspect. Much better than me. When I was cultivating, my family left me one by one. It was very sad. Yen Tianpe said, don't think so much. Aren't you doing well now? Lin Ruoxu poured a cup of tea for Yen Tianpe and said, the only original is V, the other is Q, Y is a pirated copy. What's so good about it? Realm Lord Knight has 3 wives. I am still single. Yen Tianpe said and looked at Lin Ruoxu. Senior, don't call me Realm Lord Knight. My name is Night Sorrow. You can call me by my name. The same goes for Void Dao Saint King. You are a senior of the 9-domain world. You can call me by my name in the future. Night Sorrow said. Void Dao Saint King, don't call me that. That was in the past. However, what is more suitable for you to call me? Lin Ruoxu said. How about this, Night Sorrow? Don't call me Flame Realm Lord. I am older than you. If you don't mind, you can call me Uncle. As for her, there will be a suitable name in the future. Yen Tianpe said with a smile. All right. Since the 2 of you are my seniors, I will call you Uncle and Aunt. Night Sorrow said. That's right. That's much more comfortable. Kid, work harder. When you enter the King Realm, we will go to the Sky Profound World and wreak havoc. The Sky Profound World is too shameless. Yen Tianpe was very happy and spoke his thoughts. They always think that they are better than others. They even use the saint crystals of our world's cultivators as materials. This is simply intolerable. Thinking of the Sky Profound World's actions, Night Sorrow was also very angry. In the past, the Everlasting World was the same. That's why Uncle also hates them. However, we were alone and could not defeat them. Yen Tianpe said. Night Sorrow nodded. He could also understand. When the Everlasting World did not have a world master, it was also a subsidiary world that was bullied. After chatting for a while, Night Sorrow and Yen Tianpe went to set up the realm transmission array. The 2 of them discussed for a while and felt that it was better to keep the realm transmission array a secret. There was no need to open it to the public. A limited number of people could teleport it. In the end, they decided to set it up in the side halls of the Sky City and the Sky Bearing Palace. Night Sorrow set up the transmission array in the loft next to his residence. After that, Yen Tianpe placed the transmission crystal and another transmission crystal's split body. Looking at the transmission crystal, Night Sorrow knew that it was an extremely expensive top-grade transmission crystal. The realm transmission crystal could be used to teleport across realms. Of course, it could only be used between realms that were relatively close to each other. After that, Night Sorrow and Yen Tianpe went to the Everlasting World. They set up a transmission array in the side hall of the Sky Bearing Palace and set up the transmission crystal. As the transmission crystal lit up, the 9-domain world and the Everlasting World could be officially teleported. Let's go. I'll introduce you to some people. Yen Tianpe brought Night Sorrow into the Sky Bearing Palace. Greetings, Realm Master. Everyone in the Sky Bearing Palace bowed. All of you listen up. From today onwards, only I, Realm Master Knight and Lin Xing King can enter the side hall where the transmission array was set up. Anyone else who approaches will be killed. Without even taking the main seat, Yen Tianpe gave the order. After Yen Tianpe finished speaking, everyone in the palace bowed and accepted the order. Remember this realm Lord Yi. Right now, he is also this lord's nephew. Amen, you should know what this lord means. Yen Tianpe patted Yi Shang's shoulder. After hearing Yen Tianpe's words, everyone in the hall bowed towards Yi Shang and greeted him as young master. Night Sorrow also cupped his fists towards everyone and returned the greeting. Alright, let's go and have a drink. After that, we'll go to the Sky Profound World's Two Extreme City to take a look. Yen Tianpe was in high spirits. He was indeed happy about the recent events. Speak. Third Watch. Chapter 966. In the eyes of those who didn't know them, Night Sorrow and Yen Tianpe were just two ordinary people. Once they entered the Saint King realm, they would be able to return to their original state. At their realm, their auras wouldn't leak out at all. After finding a restaurant, Yi Shang took out the wine he had brought. The two of them ate some dishes and chatted casually. Night Sorrow, how much do you know about the king's realm? After drinking a mouthful of wine, Yen Tianpe looked at Night Sorrow and asked. I don't know much about it. I just know that one needs to comprehend the will of heaven and earth, which is the true meaning of the heavenly way. As for how to comprehend it, I don't have any idea. Night Sorrow really didn't have any clue, and there was nothing he could hide. Permanent exemption from fees. In the 9-domain world, it wasn't easy for you to grow to this level. I was able to reach this level because of the help of a senior. Today, I also hope to be able to help you. Yen Tianpe's thoughts drifted a little. Then many thanks, uncle. Night Sorrow said. I was distracted. It's mainly because I missed that senior. There are many types of true meaning of the heavenly way, and they are also divided into different levels. Every king's realm cultivator can comprehend different things. For example, the true meaning of thick earth is easier for earth attribute cultivators to come into contact with. The true meaning of profound fire is the path for fire attribute cultivators to walk. There are also some special true meanings, such as slaughter intent, sword intent, saber intent, and so on that don't exist in the attribute. Yen Tianpe patiently explained to Night Sorrow. With Yen Tianpe's explanation, Night Sorrow understood a little. There were many types of true meaning of the heavenly way, and it could even be said that there was no way to understand them all, because a true meaning that didn't appear could appear at any time. When comprehending a true meaning, one couldn't deliberately pursue a specific type because it would be difficult to comprehend if it didn't fit. What one needed to do was to let nature take its course. The king's realm cultivators were also divided into 9 levels. For example, if one comprehended the true meaning of profound fire, they would be in the 1-star king's realm. If one comprehended 3 parts, they would be in the 3-star king's realm. After entering the king's realm, the increase in cultivation was mainly dependent on one's comprehension ability. If one's comprehension ability was high, then they would be able to comprehend true intent quickly and quickly. Only then would their cultivation be able to increase along with their realm. In other words, once you enter the king realm, the bottleneck will always be there. You won't be able to continuously increase your cultivation base, said Night Sorrow. That's right. With each step, there's a bottleneck. With each step, there's a ladder to the heavens. Even though we're all king realm cultivators, there's still a huge gap between us. The senior who guided me was killed by another king realm cultivator because his realm wasn't very high. However, I don't have the ability to avenge him. Yen Tianpe sighed. In such a situation, Night Sorrow was also helpless. He couldn't help Yen Tianpe in any way. Whenever you go to the Sky Profound World, just find a place where the heavenly Tao's influence is stronger. After that, just cultivate in seclusion. Remember, don't have too much contact with others. Killing is everywhere. Unless you have a very strong backer, but we don't. Yen Tianpe said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that Yen Tianpe's words were priceless advice. He had also walked step by step to reach this point. After that, Yen Tianpe brought Night Sorrow to Two Pole City to let Night Sorrow experience a mature world. There are many worlds on the same level as the Sky Profound World. Furthermore, they're all connected by teleportation arrays. When the time comes, you can choose a suitable place to cultivate. Yen Tianpe said to Night Sorrow. This world is indeed mature. It has a grand aura that our 9 regions world doesn't have. Night Sorrow expressed his feelings. A mature world has countless years of growth. It's not something a new world can compare to. Yen Tianpe smiled. Back then, when he had just left the everlasting world, he also had the same feeling. After drinking, they walked around and introduced Night Sorrow to the upper echelons of the everlasting world in Two-Pole City. After that, Yen Tianpe and Night Sorrow returned to the everlasting world and teleported to the city in the sky. In the following period of time, Night Sorrow accompanied his family. Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu walked around the Nine Regions world. However, Yen Tianpe was only in the Nine Regions world. There were some spatial barriers that he couldn't pass through. 2 months later, Yen Tianpe bid farewell to Night Sorrow. He came to accompany Lin Ruoxu. Lin Ruoxu saw the situation in the Nine Regions world and felt very at ease. The two of them planned to return to the everlasting world. After Yen Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu left, Night Sorrow also planned to move. He needed to charge towards the King Realm. If he didn't leave the Nine Regions world, he wouldn't have the chance to enter the King Realm. The Sky Profound world was too dangerous. Night Sorrow didn't bring anyone with him. At the same time, he left the time-space pagoda behind. He wanted to comprehend the true intent of heaven and earth. The time-space pagoda's acceleration was ineffective. To comprehend the true intent of heaven and earth, one had to be in direct contact with heaven and earth. After greeting his family, Night Sorrow took the teleportation array to the everlasting city. After passing through the everlasting city, Night Sorrow teleported to the Two-Pole City in the Sky Profound world. When he arrived at the Two-Pole City, Night Sorrow found an inn to stay in. He bought a map and understood the Sky Profound world. He wouldn't act rashly. As he understood, Night Sorrow understood some of the situation in the Sky Profound world. The Sky Profound world was too big. It was 1,000 times the size of the Nine Regions world. It was imaginable that there were countless forces. The structure of the forces and forces were different. Sects, clans, alliances, etc. Those with a King Realm expert were peak forces. Those with a peak stage Saint King were second-class forces. Those below third-class forces would have to rely on the major forces to survive. This was the structure of the forces in the Sky Profound world. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow also understood why a second-class force with a peak stage Saint King could exist under the pressure of a peak force. It was true that a top-notch force could easily devour a second-rate force, but if a peak stage Saint King escaped, that crazy revenge would be very difficult to bear. Moreover, who knew which peak stage Saint King would suddenly become enlightened and enter the sovereign King realm? This was a kind of invisible energy, and also a small deterrent. Night Sorrow pondered for a while. He felt that his original body could find a place to cultivate while his clone could go out and explore. He could also look for resources. After having this idea, Night Sorrow took action. He wanted to find a place with a vile environment to cultivate. Night Sorrow's target was the Splitting Wind Cliff, which was some distance away from the everlasting city. There were spatial cracks there and the spatial storms were the strongest. If he wanted to enter the King Realm, he had to choose the true meaning of the will of heaven and earth. Night Sorrow wanted to choose a place that was compatible with his attribute. There were too few places where the will of heaven and earth manifested with the void attribute and time attribute. He could only take a step back and look for the will of heaven and earth that was more compatible with his own laws to comprehend. After reaching the place, Night Sorrow finally understood why there were no forces occupying this place. It was mainly because it was too vile. This place had a very strong spatial attribute will of heaven and earth manifested. Spatial blades flew everywhere within a few thousand miles. If one's cultivation was not high enough, they would be torn apart. Feeling that this place was suitable, Night Sorrow planned to leave his original body here and use his clone to find another place where the will of heaven and earth manifested. He was naturally not satisfied with just comprehending one true meaning. The King Realm competed with the true meaning of the will of heaven and earth. If he had two true meanings, his battle prowess would be much stronger. In addition, he also wanted to go to the Tian-Nan dynasty to see if there were any movements from the Tian-Nan dynasty. Was there any movement against the 9 domains world? Speak. Chapter 967. At this moment, Shang Tianfeng was sitting in the main seat in the Tian-Nan dynasty's main hall, his body still bathed in flames. The world overlord of the limitless realm is simply relying on the fact that his true body is undying and indestructible in his own world while his clones can roam the world outside. This subordinate will wait outside the limitless city. If he comes out, this subordinate will send a message to the Emperor Lord to kill him. Gong Yanglai spoke. Alright, I'll have General Yuan follow you. His cultivation base is higher than yours, and he might be able to see through the limitless world's realm master's foundation. Even if his clone comes out, you'll be able to determine his cultivation base. His clone is the Azure Flood Dragon Clan's clone technique, and it's the same level as his true body, said Shang Tianfeng. Gong Yanglai bowed to receive the order and left the main hall. Chunner, do you know you've made a mistake? Asked Shang Tianfeng. Only the 2 of them were left in the hall. I don't know. They're too strong, and my men aren't a match for them, said Shang Jingchun. You still don't understand. First, it's about status. What's Bo Qinghan's status? What's your status? Why didn't you send him? Why did you take the risk yourself? Asked Shang Jingchun. I understand. I won't make such a mistake in the future, said Shang Jingchun. Shang Tianfeng looked at Shang Jingchun, then left the hall. Knight Sorrow's true body was meditating outside Windbreaker Cliff. His spiritual strength was enveloping the Windbreaker Cliff's spatial wind blades as he comprehended the will of heaven and earth. His soul avatar could not cultivate the true meaning of heaven and earth as it walked around the profound heaven world. Hence, it had to understand the situation better. Yi Shang was not worried about his safety. His clone had the cultivation of a peak holy king and had the supreme attribute. It also had 90% of the original body's battle prowess. As long as it did not meet any sovereign king cultivators, it would not be in any danger. Knight Sorrow had bought many books with anecdotes. He wanted to learn more from them. Knight Sorrow's understanding of the Heaven Profound world increased. The Heaven Profound world's level was much, much higher than the 9 regions world. Not to mention other things, just in terms of alchemist grade, alchemist grandmasters could not keep up with the pace. In the profound sky world, there were saint-grade alchemists who could refine saint-grade pills. Above them, there were also Saint King-grade alchemists. The ancient records even recorded the pinnacle of alchemists, the King-grade alchemists. Knight Sorrow sighed. He knew that he knew a lot, but the inheritance was a big problem. He didn't have an alchemy inheritance that could support his advancement in alchemy. The alchemy inheritance that Feng Qin had passed down could only allow him to cultivate until he became an alchemy grandmaster. After pondering for a moment, Knight Sorrow felt that he could seal a part of his cultivation and find an alchemy sect to study alchemy. His soul avatar didn't have any comprehension of the will of heaven and earth, so it couldn't assist in cultivation. However, it could still cultivate alchemy, artifact forging, and array formations. Genuine K. After studying the Book of Anecdotes for a while, Yi Shang decided to go to the Heavenly Cauldron sect to study alchemy. The Tianding Gate was a top force that was famous for alchemy and artifact forging. The gate master was the Tianding King. Knight Sorrow felt that since the Tianding Gate was so big, he might not be discovered. After all, he had the ability to return to his original state. In addition, there was the suppression of the rules of nothingness. Not everyone could see the depth of his strength. If he met the Tianding King, his luck would be very bad. With this idea in mind, Knight Sorrow took the teleportation array and rushed to the Tianding city. Then, he teleported to the Tianding mountain. At this time, the cultivation that Knight Sorrow displayed was that of a mid-level venerable. If his cultivation was too low, he wouldn't be valued and wouldn't be able to obtain a high-level alchemy inheritance. Once again, he was going to enter a sect to learn alchemy. Knight Sorrow felt quite emotional. Everything that happened in the Medicine Valley was still vivid in his mind. Night Sorrow came at the right time. When he arrived, it was the day of the Tianding Gates Disciple Recruitment Hall. The Tianding Gates disciple recruitment was very strict. If one didn't have a stage 4 cultivation or a mid-level alchemy master, they wouldn't accept him. When it was Night Sorrow's turn, the old man in charge of registration nodded at Night Sorrow. A very young mid-level venerable. The Tianding Gate doesn't mind learning from a master. What's your alchemy cultivation level? Greetings, Elder. Night Sorrow has some foundation in alchemy. However, because I don't have anyone to guide me, I want to enter the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow cupped his hands at the old man. All right, as long as you have the foundation. I'll let you register first. There will be an assessment later. If you have the foundation and have the talent for alchemy, there won't be a problem. The old man smiled and nodded. Night Sorrow had the power of the world and the ability to return to his original state. He gave off a very good feeling. Thank you, Elder. Night Sorrow finished speaking and went to the side to wait. After everyone finished registering, the alchemy assessment began. Of course, there were also alchemy assessment. The Tianding Gate's auxiliary skills were alchemy and alchemy. This time, they were accepting disciples with auxiliary skills. Normally, they would accept disciples with cultivation skills after a year. Then, it was the assessment. Night Sorrow brought his alchemy furnace and took the spirit distraction pill from the Tianding Gate's preparation materials. He casually refined it. Night Sorrow didn't want to be too ostentatious. He just wanted to enter the sect and cultivate alchemy. However, he didn't dare to be too low-key. If he didn't pass, they wouldn't accept him. Looking at Night Sorrow, the old man nodded. Your concoction technique is a bit low. However, without anyone to guide you, it's not easy for you to reach this level. You pass. Night Sorrow nodded at the old man. He was very satisfied to be able to enter the sect. After the disciple recruitment ceremony ended, Night Sorrow and a group of people were brought to the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain by the old man. Subsequently, the various elders came to select disciples. The first person to select a disciple was Night Sorrow. This was a young woman that looked to be around 30 years old, and she selected a few others. Night Sorrow followed this young woman to a mountain called West Hua Mountain. I'm West Radiance Peak's Jing Lan. All of you are now nominal disciples of the West Radiance Peak. You can become official disciples when you become an alchemy grandmaster and can refine mid-grade grade 6 medicinal pills. The middle-aged woman, Jing Lan, said to them. After arriving at the West Radiance Peak, Night Sorrow slowly understood some things. The West Radiance Peak's position in the Tianding Gate was very awkward. The Peak Master, Chu Danxian, didn't like to communicate with others, so her relationship with the others in the Tianding Gate wasn't very good. It could even be said that she was ostracized everywhere. Night Sorrow knew that relationships were needed everywhere. In the past, when the Tianding Gate recruited disciples, it was always the West Radiance Peak's turn to pick the leftovers. This time, the elder that was in charge of recruiting disciples had a good personal relationship with Chu Danxian, so he allowed Jing Lan to choose first. Besides that, Night Sorrow also noticed that the disciples of the West Radiance Peak were very undisciplined and lacked spirit. But Night Sorrow didn't care about all this. What he cared about was who he wanted to learn alchemy from. Even if there was no one to teach him, he had to be provided with a book on alchemy, otherwise, how would he learn? After staying for a few days, Night Sorrow asked someone, and then he found out that the new disciples hadn't taken the oath of entrance and were unable to formally learn alchemy. Fortunately, it wasn't long before someone brought Night Sorrow and a few new disciples to the West Radiance Pavilion and took the oath of not betraying the Tianding Gate. With the oath of entrance, Night Sorrow possessed some authority, and that was the ability to enter the treasury to look for books to read. On this day, when Night Sorrow was studying books, he was shouted out by someone. The person that's lacking an assistant is you. Speak. Chapter 968. She was also a young woman that looked to be around 20 years old. Since she had called for him to be her assistant, Night Sorrow could only follow along. Night Sorrow followed the young woman to a pill refinement room. There were 2 people standing guard outside the pill refinement room. The young woman brought Night Sorrow into the pill refinement room. "Master, I went to look for someone else, but they all said they were busy, so I casually grabbed someone and brought them over," said the young woman. Which elder are you following? What's your current level in pill refinement?" asked the young woman in a blue dress. "I just entered the sect, and I haven't followed any elder," said Night Sorrow. "Tang Yuan, this is the supplementary material for the 5-spirit pill that you found as an assistant. You must be a high-grade pill refiner to refine it." The young woman in a blue dress glared at Tang Yuan. "High-grade pill refiner? I think I can do it," said Night Sorrow. "Then refine a grade 5 medicinal pill for me to see." The young woman in a blue dress nodded. "Look small, speak small, speak." Night Sorrow found the materials for the clear void pill in the pill refinement room and refined a cauldron of clear void pills. Holding the medicinal pill that Night Sorrow refined, the young woman looked at it seriously for a moment before nodding, and then she tossed a piece of paper that was filled with supplementary materials to Night Sorrow. "Not bad, take a look at the supplementary materials for the refinement first. You can't make any mistakes when the time comes." Night Sorrow looked at it and nodded. He knew that she might be refining a high-grade medicinal pill, and it was already good that he could follow along. "Go back and study it. Come back 3 days later. Tang Yuan, go tell Elder Jing that he'll come over to Master's place in the future." After the young woman finished speaking, she didn't pay any more attention to Night Sorrow and went to study the medicinal pill materials that were placed at the side. Tang Yuan found Jing Lan and told him about Night Sorrow's arrangements. Night Sorrow was stunned when he heard this because the young woman in a blue dress was actually the peak master of the West Radiance Peak, Chu Danxian. However, Night Sorrow didn't say anything. Chu Danxian was a 6-star saint, so she wouldn't be able to see through his depth. As for Tang Yuan, she was named by Chu Danxian. In the past, her name was Ku Kai. Her parents died early and she lived like a stray dog. She was picked up by Chu Danxian, and because it was the Lantern Festival, she changed her name to Tang Yuan. For the next few days, Night Sorrow had been researching how to refine the 5-spirit pill. The 5-spirit pill was a 7th-level pill, and a high-grade one at that. It could allow a person to enter an ethereal state and increase the chances of returning to one's original state. After studying Night Sorrow for 2 days, he finally understood. On the 3rd day, Tang Yuan once again called for Night Sorrow. At this time, Night Sorrow was living in a separate courtyard not far from the pill refining room. After entering the pill refining room, Chu Danxian gave him a task. Tang Yuan was in charge of concocting the materials, Night Sorrow was in charge of refining the supplementary materials, and she was in charge of refining the main materials. Night Sorrow nodded. He didn't have any problems refining the 5th-level supplementary materials. After that, Chu Danxian started to refine the 5-spirit pill's main materials. Night Sorrow waited at the side. He understood Chu Danxuan's plan. She was worried that her pill flame and soul energy wouldn't be enough, so she got someone else to refine the supplementary materials. She was only in charge of refining the main materials and fusing them, as well as the steps of condensing the pill. This way, she could avoid some problems. Chu Danxian spoke very little and practically didn't communicate with Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan. Night Sorrow didn't mind this. He looked at Chu Danxuan's pill refining technique and compared it with what he saw in books. 2 hours later, Chu Danxian called out to Night Sorrow and asked Night Sorrow to start refining the supplementary materials. "Be careful. If there's a problem, you won't be able to bear the consequences." Tang Yuan fiercely glared at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow just smiled. He didn't care about Tang Yuan's gaze. One's state of mind determined one's attitude. Night Sorrow felt that Tang Yuan only wanted to show off in front of Chu Danxian, so there was no need to care. Night Sorrow continuously refined all kinds of supplementary materials and then handed them to Chu Danxian to fuse with the main materials. The 5-spirit pill was a high-grade Saint tier pill, and it was very complicated. Just the supplementary materials alone required over 20 kinds. But that wasn't a problem for Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow finished refining each of the supplementary materials in just a moment. Night Sorrow's technique was a bit rusty, but he was able to refine them in an orderly manner. Both Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were flabbergasted. That was because Night Sorrow's refining speed was very fast. When the final supplementary material called green bamboo leaf juice was refined, Night Sorrow's work was completed. But at this time, a problem occurred. Chu Danxian failed to fuse the green bamboo leaf juice, and it didn't reach her expectations of condensing the pill. The green bamboo leaf juice couldn't perfectly fuse with the main materials and supplementary materials. Give me another portion of green bamboo leaf juice. Chu Danxian instructed Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan. Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan followed Chu Danxuan's instructions. Night Sorrow really wanted to say that Chu Danxian was a fraud. He had refined over 10 portions of green bamboo leaf juice, but Chu Danxian still hadn't succeeded. Night Sorrow knew that this batch of pills had failed. Because there was too much green bamboo leaf juice, it was impossible to successfully condense the pill. But Night Sorrow couldn't say that because a normal high-level alchemist wouldn't be able to discover it. After having Night Sorrow refine 2 more portions of green bamboo leaf juice, Chu Danxian gave up. She also knew that she had failed long ago, but she didn't want to give up. The price of this batch of pills was too high. Chu Danxian admitted that she had failed, and Night Sorrow left the alchemy room. How could it fail? Chu Danxuan's face was full of confusion. Could it be that the supplementary materials refined by that brat weren't good enough, causing the pill to fail? Tang Yuan immediately thought that it was Night Sorrow's problem. It's not his problem. The supplementary materials he refined were very pure. It could be said that there were no impurities. I don't know which part of the problem occurred. This assistant's technique is a bit rusty, but his foundation is very solid. Chu Danxian said. Night Sorrow had continuously refined supplementary materials, and even after refining so many portions of green bamboo leaf juice, he still didn't feel it was strenuous. Chu Danxian wasn't a fool, so she should know Night Sorrow's strength. In the following days, Yi Shang studied alchemy every day. He had spirit stones on him, so he would often go out to buy medicinal ingredients and hone himself in alchemy. Sometimes, Chu Danxian would call Yi Shang to the alchemy room and ask him to refine some 5th-tier medicinal pills. The Heavenly Cauldron sect was famous for its medicinal pills and refining equipment, so they naturally had a medicinal pill business. In addition, they also needed their disciples to cultivate with medicinal pills. When Night Sorrow was refining pills, he got used to the Tianding Gate's alchemy techniques and reorganized his alchemy techniques. After all, there was a big gap between the Tianding Gate's inheritance and the sealed dust handbook. What made Night Sorrow unhappy was that Tang Yuan kept finding fault with him. Even Chu Danxian didn't like him and even used him as a coolie. When she had nothing to do, she would ask Night Sorrow to refine low-grade pills. This wasn't training at all, it was just hard work. In the past, Night Sorrow might not have tolerated this kind of thing, but now he didn't care. If he did, Night Sorrow could crush the 2 of them as easily as crushing a chicken. In the entire Tianding Gate, the only person stronger than Night Sorrow was the Tianding King. In addition, Night Sorrow knew that Tang Yuan, who used to be called Ku Kai, had some bad habits that were ingrained in her bones. Night Sorrow learned to ignore some low-level people. Usually, after completing the tasks that Chu Danxian gave him, Night Sorrow would use the ingredients he bought to refine pills. With the support of the ingredients, Night Sorrow's alchemy skills rose sharply. After 2 months, he became a high-level alchemy master and could aim to become a saint-level alchemy master. When Night Sorrow's clone was constantly studying alchemy, Night Sorrow's main body was still studying the will of the heavens. On this day, when Night Sorrow was refining pills in his residence, a guest came to his courtyard. Night Sorrow stood up to receive the guest. Speak. Chapter 969. The person who came was the old man who had accepted Night Sorrow into the Tianding Gate. "Young man, are you used to it?" the old man asked with a smile. "Thank you for your concern, elder. Fortunately, I can be engrossed in alchemy every day. It's very suitable for this disciple. May I know how to address you, elder?" Night Sorrow said. "Good attitude. I don't remember my name, but you can call me Elder Xiang." Elder Xiang sat down and said. Night Sorrow took out a teapot, brewed a pot of tea, and poured a cup for the old man. Attitude determines vision and also determines one's achievements. Don't mind some small matters. You might suffer some grievances if I arrange for you to go to the West Radiance Peak, but if I don't arrange for someone to go to the West Radiance Peak, then the West Radiance Peak will decline. Elder Xiang said. Disciple understands. I won't mind. Night Sorrow looked at the old man who was only an intermediate saint and said. He had a good impression of this old man. Although his cultivation wasn't high, he had an extraordinary aura. He understood that if the old man didn't have some outstanding aspects, he wouldn't be able to become a higher-up of the Tianding Gate with a cultivation of intermediate saint. After that, the old man chatted with Night Sorrow for a while and asked about Night Sorrow's past. Night Sorrow's answer was that he came from a remote place and didn't come into contact with too many people. However, he liked alchemy. This is a book on alchemy. Take it and study it. Elder Xiang took out a handwritten book and handed it to Night Sorrow. Thank you for your generous gift, Elder. Night Sorrow stood up and bowed to the old man. It's nothing. Work hard. If you really have any questions, you can come to the main peak to find me. Cultivation questions are also fine. Perhaps I can guide you in terms of vision and knowledge, the old man said with a smile. After sending the old man away, Night Sorrow felt a little more at ease. The Tianding Gate could clearly become a saint-grade alchemist. After all, the 5-spirit pill was a top-grade saint-grade pill. However, this was not the limit that Night Sorrow was pursuing. With his current cultivation, he could become a Saint King-grade alchemist. Chu Danxian still treated him as a coolie, but Night Sorrow's refining speed was very fast. If you want me to refine, then I will refine. After finishing my own work, Night Sorrow will then go and refine his own pills. Master, this fellow is so quiet. He's not putting master in his eyes at all. Tang Yuan said as she watched Night Sorrow's departing figure. Look at the original version of the book with Night Sorrow's cultivation, he could naturally hear Tang Yuan's words. This made him feel very helpless. He just didn't curry favor with Tang Yuan like the others, yet Tang Yuan had always been targeting him. Although Night Sorrow wanted to live a peaceful life, Night Sorrow wouldn't curry favor with anyone. Even King couldn't do that. Chu Danxian didn't say anything. Although she didn't like Night Sorrow very much, Night Sorrow was very good at doing things. He has been in the sect for half a year, but his alchemy skills still haven't improved. Master can teach him more strictly. Tang Yuan said. With Tang Yuan adding fuel to the fire, Yishang's days became even more difficult. This was because Chu Danxian had set a goal for Yishang's improvement. She had set a certain level when he would reach and what kind of medicinal pill he would refine. However, Night Sorrow was already a saint-grade alchemist, so this naturally wouldn't be a problem for him. When the time set by Chu Danxian was up, Night Sorrow would naturally meet the requirements. After becoming a saint-grade alchemist, Night Sorrow could refine top-grade 5th-order pills. Night Sorrow kept a portion of these pills because the people of the 9 regions world needed them. Elder Xiang often came to drink tea with Night Sorrow and said some comforting words to Night Sorrow. When Yishang reached the alchemy grandmaster realm that Chu Danxian had requested, his life became a little more comfortable. A saint-level alchemist needed a saint-level cultivation, and Yishang had shown a venerable-level cultivation. Chu Danxian couldn't ask a venerable-level alchemist like Yishang to become a saint-level alchemist. When Night Sorrow wasn't refining pills, he also cultivated formations. He learned from Elder Xiang. When they were chatting, this topic came up by chance. Knowing that Elder Xiang was an expert in this field, Knight Sorrow humbly asked for guidance. Besides that, Elder Xiang had also found out about Yi Shang's situation in the West Radiance Peak, so he brought Yi Shang to see Chu Danxian and said some words that were implicit, but Chu Danxian was able to understand what he meant. From that day onwards, Chu Danxian came to her senses and didn't make things difficult for Knight Sorrow anymore. However, a new problem arose. That was, Chu Danxian wanted Knight Sorrow to become a disciple. Knight Sorrow was unwilling. Respecting one's master was an iron law that cultivators had to abide by. Knight Sorrow only wanted to cultivate and refine pills. He didn't have to betray the Tianding Gate and fulfill his duty for the Tianding Gate. However, in his heart, he still didn't accept Chu Danxian. Knight Sorrow used his low natural talent as an excuse to refuse Chu Danxian. The furious Chu Danxian roared loudly and wanted to expel Knight Sorrow from the sect. This made Knight Sorrow feel very helpless. However, Elder Xiang came at this moment. Elder Xiang, Knight Sorrow came to the Tianding Gate to cultivate and become a disciple of the Tianding Gate, so he'll be bound by the rules of the Tianding Gate. However, his natural talent is inferior and he didn't intend to become a disciple of any sect. A master for a day is a father for life, so Knight Sorrow wasn't mentally prepared as well, said Knight Sorrow. I understand. Knight Sorrow, calm down first. Danxian, you have to understand that taking a disciple is a matter of mutual consent, and it can't be forced in the slightest. If you want to take a disciple, then the first thing you have to do is be a role model for others. Think about it, Knight Sorrow has been at the West Radiance Peak since you've done this. You've slightly disappointed me, and you have to reflect on yourself, said Elder Xiang. Chu Danchuan's eyes were filled with flames as she looked at Knight Sorrow. She was very angry, but she couldn't say anything when facing Elder Xiang. Knight Sorrow, cultivate here. Just remember that you're a disciple of the Tianding Gate. If there's a problem, I believe you'll be able to deal with it properly. Elder Xiang nodded to Knight Sorrow before leaving. Knight Sorrow, you're really something. Chu Danxian spoke coldly before turning around and leaving. Knight Sorrow was left behind by himself, and he sighed helplessly. It's not easy to even be an ordinary disciple. Is this the large world? After he stabilized his state of mind, Knight Sorrow continued to refine pills and charge towards proficiency. As for Chu Danchuan's difficulties, Knight Sorrow didn't mind because he wasn't wrong and had an indomitable spirit that had a clear conscience. Truthfully speaking, Knight Sorrow felt that Chu Danxian wasn't suitable to be his master in any aspect. No matter if it was character, virtue, or strength, she didn't have the qualifications. Speak. Chapter 970. After being rebuffed by Knight Sorrow, Chu Danxian never came to look for Knight Sorrow again. Knight Sorrow studied his alchemy skills leisurely. He also did business, which was exchanging alchemy pills for ingredients, and ingredients for alchemy pills. His soul power was strong, and even Chu Danchuan's alchemy speed couldn't compare to him. Amongst the 1,000-plus disciples of the Heavenly Cauldron sect's West Radiance Peak, Yi Shang had become an exception. He was someone that no one loved, and because Chu Danxian looked down on, no one paid any attention to Yi Shang. Occasionally, he would be troubled, but Knight Sorrow would just laugh it off. Although he was young, he had already passed the age of showing off. His state of mind wasn't something that ordinary people could understand. Even if he was provoked by a rank 4 cultivator and said a few unpleasant words, he would just laugh it off. In addition, he wouldn't refuse anyone who asked him for help. After a long time, Knight Sorrow's reputation in the West Radiance Peak became better. In addition, everyone knew that Knight Sorrow's alchemy skills were very high. For alchemy pills below the saint rank, Knight Sorrow had never failed to refine them. Some people also knew the reason why Knight Sorrow wasn't welcomed. It was because he wasn't willing to take the Peak Master as his master. This made many people admire him, because many people didn't have such an opportunity even if they racked their brains. In the blink of an eye, Knight Sorrow had arrived at the Tianding Gate for 3 years. His alchemy skills had already reached the Saint King level. Now, he was studying formations. If it wasn't for that, Night Sorrow might have left the Tianding Gate to explore. The Tianding Gate's rules weren't strict, and it could even be said that they were very loose. As long as you didn't betray the Tianding Gate, you could go out and explore at any time and come back at any time. However, you must lend a hand when something happened to the Tianding Gate. On the other hand, Night Sorrow and Elder Xiang had become friends despite the difference in age. They often drank tea together. However, Night Sorrow's main body's comprehension of the will of heaven and earth wasn't enough. He knew that this was normal. If it was so easy to comprehend, then the king's realm would be everywhere. Just as Night Sorrow was planning to send some alchemy pills to the main body and some resources to the 9 regions world, Chu Danxian found Night Sorrow. I plan to participate in the alchemist conference. You will accompany me as my assistant. Chu Danxian said to Night Sorrow. My West Radiance Peak has many elders who are better at alchemy than me. I'll pass. Yi Shan didn't want to join in the fun, and he just wanted to cultivate in peace. Tangs. S is for you, why do you have so for you? I don't care if you are Ku Kai or Tang Yuan. Go to the side. Who do you think you are? Go to someone else. Don't talk nonsense with me. Night Sorrow looked at Tang Yuan and roared. His aura subconsciously suppressed Tang Yuan and forced her to retreat. I can go and do what an assistant should do. But please remember, don't disturb my cultivation after this. Night Sorrow finished roaring at Tang Yuan and looked at Chu Danxian. Chu Danxian nodded. She was also helpless. It wasn't suitable to ask some elders to be his assistant. Firstly, they might not be willing to be a supporting role. Furthermore, she had some understanding of Night Sorrow's alchemy skills. No matter if it was his proficiency or technique, no one else could compare to him at the level of an alchemy grandmaster. The Alchemist Union was an independent force in the profound sky world. Any alchemy grandmaster could join. The Alchemist Union would often hold a conference to promote exchanges. This time, the conference was held at the Big Dipper city that Night Sorrow often traded at. That was the capital city of the Big Dipper Empire. Night Sorrow had mentioned this matter to Old Xiang when he was chatting with him. Looking at Night Sorrow, Old Xiang smiled, then you can go. It's not good for you to be too calm at such a young age. Young people should be full of vigor and vitality. In fact, you could have signed up yourself. There's no point in fighting for fame and fortune. I can do it myself, I don't need the approval of others. Night Sorrow shook his head and said. You're right, but it's not comprehensive enough. For example, if you're a monarch-grade alchemist and someone wants to refine a monarch-grade medicinal pill, wouldn't they have to look for you and pay a huge price? Wouldn't that be a great help to you? Elder Xiang said. Night Sorrow thanks Old Xiang for his guidance. Night Sorrow nodded to Old Xiang. There was still some time before the alchemist assembly began, so Night Sorrow continued to study alchemy. His alchemy skills had already reached the same level as his cultivation, and he had already become a high-grade Saint King-grade alchemist. It could be said that in the absence of King-grade alchemists, his alchemy skills were outstanding. After finishing another round of alchemy, Yang Kai poured himself a pot of heart-cleansing tea to taste when Chu Danxian came to call Night Sorrow to set off. The mysterious Heaven World's transmission arrays were quite developed, so after a few teleportations, Chu Danxian brought Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan to Big Dipper City and settled down in an inn. After settling down, Night Sorrow went to the city's largest medicine store. Little friend, the materials you requested have already been prepared, so we don't owe you anything, an old man inside the medicine store said with a smile. I brought some pills this time, old Zhang, you still owe me, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Haha, that's not necessarily the case, this time we've obtained some top-grade materials, old Zhang smiled and led Night Sorrow into the VIP room. You say that every time, I don't believe you, old Zhang, Night Sorrow said as he sat down. He was a VIP here and was very familiar with old Zhang, so he spoke very casually. Alright, but I can give you a piece of news. This time there really are some top-grade treasures appearing, King-grade silver dragon bone and silver dragon blood essence. Silver dragon bone is a top-grade artifact refining material, you can't obtain it, but the dragon blood essence is only for top-grade alchemists who need it, no one will touch it. You can try, the auction will be tomorrow, Old Zhang said. I don't have much capital. Night Sorrow really wanted the dragon blood essence, it was a supplementary material for his myriad Dao tomes cultivation. Let's go take a look, the auction house can't miss out, Old Zhang said with a smile. Night Sorrow nodded, going to take a look was free, and if he couldn't afford it, he wouldn't lose any money. When they returned to the inn, Night Sorrow was faced with Chu Danchuan's dissatisfied gaze. Night Sorrow didn't mind, or rather, he was already used to it. There are only 7 days left until the alchemist assembly, I don't want any accidents, Chu Danxian said coldly. After returning to his room, Night Sorrow counted his assets. In the past, he had over 30 Holy Spirit stones, but after years of accumulating wealth through alchemy, he had only accumulated 60. In other words, if the silver dragon blood essence exceeded 60 Holy Spirit stones, he would have to give it up. Night Sorrow quietly rested in the inn for a day, then followed Old Zhang to the auction house. The auction house's security was very strict, and it could be said that no one could enter without a number plate. This was Big Dipper King's territory, so no one dared to mess around. Night Sorrow and Old Zhang sat down and waited for the auction to begin. However, something that disgusted Night Sorrow appeared, and that was that Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan also appeared in the auction house. #KV. One is the real deal, while the others are pirated versions. Night Sorrow had no choice, as he couldn't leave. He felt that these two women were ghosts with ill intentions. While Night Sorrow was thinking, Chu Danxian also saw Night Sorrow. Her eyes were filled with confusion, then anger, because Night Sorrow's seat was much more honorable than hers. Speak. Chapter 971. Night Sorrow turned his head to the side and pretended not to see Chu Danxian. He didn't care about that anymore. He could do whatever he wanted. He was a disciple of the Tianding Gate, but he didn't need to care about anyone's feelings. Night Sorrow wasn't afraid of being expelled. He hadn't done anything to betray the Tianding Gate. If Chu Danxian wanted to find trouble with him, he had no choice but to accept it. The auction items were sold one by one. When it came to the silver dragon bone, it reached its climax. This is the bone of a fallen king-level silver dragon. We don't know how it died, but a king sent it to be auctioned. Its authenticity is guaranteed by our Big Dipper auction house's 10,000 years of reputation. The auctioneer gave a simple introduction. His words were simple, but everyone understood what he meant. The owner of the Big Dipper auction house was Big Dipper King. Would Big Dipper King auction fake goods? Of course not. In the end, the silver dragon bone was sold for 300 Saint Spirit stones. This made Night Sorrow feel embarrassed. Back in the Nine Regions world, Night Sorrow felt that he wasn't lacking in anything. Now, however, he felt like a country bumpkin. Night Sorrow didn't have much hope for the silver dragon blood. There were too many rich people in the profound heaven world. If others wanted it, he couldn't compete. The starting price of the silver dragon blood was 30 Saint Spirit stones. Night Sorrow raised his hand and bid 40 Saint Spirit stones. Every bid had to be at least 10 Saint Spirit stones. What surprised Night Sorrow was that no one bid. That was 3 whole chunks of silver dragon blood. The auctioneer called out 3 times. Night Sorrow felt that time was passing very slowly. Only when the auctioneer's hammer fell on the table did someone call out a bid. However, it was already too late. What's going on? You managed to get it. The elder looked at Night Sorrow in surprise. He had brought Night Sorrow here to take a look, but he hadn't expected that Night Sorrow would actually manage to get it. I didn't know that no one would bid for the silver dragon blood, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Night Sorrow then noticed that Chu Danxian had bid for 2 alchemy ingredients. However, They were both at the starting price of 20 Saint Spirit stones. After the auction ended, Knight Sorrow paid the Saint Spirit stones and obtained the 3 chunks of silver dragon blood essence. Young man, you really know your stuff. This old man was still thinking about the silver dragon bone in a daze and actually missed it. At the entrance of the auction house, the old man who had bid late greeted Yishan. I'm sorry, but this is really important to me, Yishang said apologetically. Hee, don't worry. A gentleman doesn't take away someone else's love. This is yours. The old man smiled and left. Yishan said goodbye to Elder Zhang and returned to the inn. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan appeared in Knight Sorrow's room as soon as they entered the inn. You're very rich. Is there a problem? Knight Sorrow replied indifferently. Knight Sorrow didn't like Chu Danchuan's tone. How can you say that? Tang Yuan saw that Knight Sorrow was a little unconvinced and directly said. Then how can I say that? I can't enter the auction house or can't have Saint Spirit stones. Also, look after yourself. Don't ask for no reason. You don't have the right. Knight Sorrow looked at Tang Yuan and replied. As an elder, I can't even ask. Chu Danxian replied to Knight Sorrow. There's a limit to everything. No one is a fool, and no one will always have a good temper. Don't scare me with the threat of being expelled from the sect. You know I don't care. Yishang didn't want to hold back anymore, because these 2 women had no bottom line. You're very good. Chu Danxian said and brought Tang Yuan back to her room. Master, what's the point of expelling him from the sect? Tang Yuan said somewhat indignantly. Chu Danxian glanced at Tang Yuan and said with dissatisfaction, after this alchemy conference, you have to work harder. If you're capable, would Master need to give face to him? Knight Sorrow's soul strength enveloped the entire inn, and he clearly heard Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's words. He knew that his days in the West Radiance Peak were coming to an end. It wasn't that he wouldn't stay any longer even if Chu Danxian didn't expel him from the sect. The 2 of them had no bottom line. His master, Chu Danxian, had no bottom line. Tang Yuan, or rather, Jiao Kuai, her parents had died early, and she lacked education. Knight Sorrow disdained to be associated with them. Since he'd thought things through, he naturally didn't mind. Knight Sorrow studied the silver dragon blood essence for a moment and felt extremely satisfied. Because these 3 pieces of silver dragon blood essence were very large. Any one of them was the size of a millstone and contained extremely dense energy. After staying for a few days, Chu Danxian brought Knight Sorrow and Tang Yuan to the plaza of the Alchemist Guild. The alchemy conference was being held here. All the alchemists that had registered would refine medicinal pills together. The winner would receive generous rewards and the Pill King medal from the Alchemist Guild. This alchemy conference was only held once every 300 years, so it was rather grand, and there were many alchemists that came. Knight Sorrow noticed that there were at least 200 people participating, and each person could bring 2 assistants. There were 9 long tables in front of each official participant. On the first table, there were 3 alchemy furnaces and alchemy materials, and the tables behind were also filled with materials. Knight Sorrow also understood the rules. The 9 long tables represented 9 grades. The first table was filled with medicinal materials for Tier 1 pills, the second table was filled with materials for Tier 2 pills, and so on. If the materials on the 5th table were successfully refined, one would be an alchemy grandmaster, and if the materials on the 6th table were successfully refined, one would be an alchemy grandmaster. If the materials on the 7th table were successfully refined, one would be a Saint-grade alchemist, and the 8th table corresponded to a Saint-king-grade alchemist. The 9th table was an empty table, which represented a king-grade alchemist. King-grade alchemists wouldn't participate in such a conference. Even if they did, it would be the Pill Monarch Conference, which was held once every 1,000 years. This conference would produce 3 Pill Kings, Amethyst Pill King, Golden Pill King, and Silver Pill King, which corresponded to the top 3. In addition, after breaking through to the level of Alchemy Grandmaster, there would be elders of the Alchemist Union who would ask questions about alchemy. Only those who passed could continue to refine pills. This was to prevent alchemists who were not skilled enough from wasting materials. Knight Sorrow saw Ji Teng and cupped his hands to greet him. Ji Teng also responded with a smile. After worshipping the pill god, everyone stood in their positions. After a person wearing a robe with pill patterns lit the incense, the participants began to refine pills. If they didn't refine pills within the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, they would fail. Knight Sorrow saw the seriousness of the alchemy conference. Refining Tier 1 pills had eliminated more than a dozen people, not for anything else, but because of carelessness and flaws in the pills. Pills are for people to eat. Alchemists should have a sincere attitude. If your father and mother ate pills, would they also refine pills like this? Ji Teng reprimanded the losers and directly drove them out of the arena. Knight Sorrow and Tang Yuan had nothing to do with refining low-level pills. They were just going through the motions. When refining Saint-grade pills, Chu Danxian needed the cooperation of the two. Knight Sorrow knew Chu Danxuan's level. She could refine Saint-grade mid-rank pills, but she didn't have the opportunity to refine high-level pills. Speak. Chapter 972. This was because Chu Danxian had never succeeded in refining the 5-spirit pill. She was a level 6 saint, so her spiritual strength was not enough. Even if she had an assistant, it was still not enough. After some people were eliminated in the first tier, everyone became more cautious. They did not dare to be careless, which led to very few people being eliminated. Knight Sorrow and Tang Yuan followed Chu Danxian. As long as it was not a level 6 pill, Chu Danxian did not need an assistant. Knight Sorrow did not care about Tang Yuan and other people trying to curry favor with her. The level 6 pill was the Origin Spirit pill, while the level 6 pill was the Yuan Qing pill. Now, alchemy grandmasters needed to refine the Yuan Qing pill. In the Alchemist Assembly, there was no need to refine low-level pills of every grade, only high-level pills. This way, the alchemist who passed the assessment would be at the pinnacle of this level. The Alchemist Union opened their mouths and asked some questions about the refining techniques of the Yuan Qing pill. As the questions were asked, some people were eliminated. This was because they could not refine the Yuan Qing pill in theory. Chu Danxian naturally had no problems. She came from the Tianding Gate, so she could refine both in theory and practice. In practice, many people were eliminated. Some of the alchemists were alchemy grandmasters, but they had not reached the peak. Although they could refine the pill in theory, they could not refine it in practice. Next was the refining of the Saint Grade 5 Spirit pill. Following that, the elders of the Alchemist Union would ask questions. Following that, the Alchemist Union's elders would ask questions. Following that, one after another, the Alchemist Union's alchemists fell off their horses. In order to refine the 5-spirit pill, one needed to be a high-level saint-grade alchemist. The one who asked Chu Danxian was Ji Teng. Ji Teng smiled and nodded at Knight Sorrow. Ji Teng began to ask questions, but when it came to the fusion of the supplementary materials and the main materials, Ji Teng shook his head in dissatisfaction and announced that Chu Danxian was disqualified. "Hello Elder, I wonder if I can add on." Knight Sorrow saw Chu Danxuan's disappointment and cupped his hands towards Ji Teng. "If you can answer correctly, I can give you a chance." Ji Teng nodded. "I'll give her a chance." Knight Sorrow pointed at Chu Danxian. "No, she's wrong in theory. It's impossible for her to complete the refinement. Come, I want to hear your answer." Ji Teng glanced at Chu Danxian and shook his head. After sighing, Knight Sorrow explained the situation of the 5-spirit pill and where Chu Danxian made a mistake. Very good answer. You may proceed to the next round and try to concoct the 5-spirit pill. Of course, with your cultivation, failure is certain. I will personally pay for the ingredients. Young people need opportunities. Ji Teng said to Knight Sorrow. He had a good impression of Night Sorrow. Just based on Night Sorrow's apology after winning the Silver Dragon Blood Essence, he liked it very much. Night Sorrow didn't have the arrogance of a young man. That Night Sorrow will not disappoint the elders. After listening to Ji Teng's words, Night Sorrow's heart was touched. Ji Teng had perfectly explained what it meant to be a person of virtue and prestige, what it meant to be magnanimous. Sorry, I won't be your assistant. Chu Danxian coldly snorted and retreated to the competition seat behind the first table. Tang Yuan also left. An old man on the main seat closed his eyes in disappointment. The other elders of the Alchemist Union also shook their heads. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's actions had lost their bearing. Night Sorrow didn't mind because he didn't need an assistant to concoct the Saint King high-level spirit perception pill. The Saint Level 5 spirit pill wasn't difficult for him. The old man wearing a long robe lit a very thick incense stick and the 7th round of the examination began. Night Sorrow stood in front of the long table and tidied up his robe. He then closed his eyes and nodded to the furnace. He then began to concoct the 5 spirit pill. Night Sorrow's 2 alchemy furnaces started at the same time. One refining the main ingredient, the other refining the auxiliary ingredient. Everything was coordinated and natural. This young man is not bad. Although his cultivation is low and he will definitely fail, his bearing and technique are excellent. The most important thing is that his attitude is correct. He will definitely grow up in the future. An old man sitting beside Ji Ting said. Elder Tan, it's still too early to say that. Cultivation limits an alchemist's grade, but don't forget about talent. Some alchemists with good talent and powerful soul force can skip ranks to concoct pills. The old man who was disappointed in Chu Danxian said. Elder Xiang is right. Elder Tan bowed to the old man. Night Sorrow heard their conversation. This made him less worried because even if he succeeded, it could be explained by talent. At this time, the 30 or so alchemists who were still persevering all had assistants. So what if they had assistants? Their refining speed was not as fast as Night Sorrow's. Although Night Sorrow's alchemy fire was average, it was very stable and didn't affect his refining speed. Night Sorrow continued to refine the main ingredients while the auxiliary ingredients were refined one by one and fused with the main ingredients. Everything was done naturally and harmoniously by Night Sorrow. 4 hours later, Night Sorrow waved his sleeve and opened his alchemy furnace. Energy wrapped around the pills and they fell into a jade bottle. He also left 1 pill on a jade plate for the Alchemist Guild's upper echelon to inspect. After using his alchemy fire to clean the alchemy furnace, Night Sorrow once again closed his eyes and nodded towards the alchemy furnace. He then took a few steps back. Elder Tan, can any of you do better than him? Elder Xiang looked at Elder Tan and asked. Yes, people like him are born to refine pills. Elder Tan nodded. Following that was the evaluation of the pills. The Alchemist Guild was very satisfied with Night Sorrow's pills. Because Night Sorrow was refining them alone, the main ingredients and auxiliary ingredients were refined at the same temperature. That was why the 5 spirit pill was incomparably smooth. Very good. I really didn't misjudge you. Ji Teng looked at Night Sorrow with satisfaction. Let's not talk about other things. Night Sorrow can't disappoint the expectations of the elders. I can't let down the teachings and support of the elders. Night Sorrow said. Young people like you are becoming fewer and fewer. Don't talk about quitting. If you pass the examination, I am still willing to give you a set of alchemy materials to let you continue. Ji Ting seemed to have seen through Night Sorrow's thoughts and directly spoke his mind. At this time, another person came over to re-register Night Sorrow. Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow reported his name. And, who is your master? Ji Ting asked. Speaking of which, my previous honored master didn't really refine pills. When I was at the Tianding Gate, I didn't have an honored master. Night Sorrow hesitated and said. He wouldn't lie. After listening to Knight Sorrow's words, Ji Teng and the Alchemist Guild elder were both stunned. Knight Sorrow, with his aptitude, actually didn't have a honored master. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, come, next is the Saint King grade pill assessment. This king can't actually refine it, but I know the theory, so don't answer incorrectly. Ji Teng returned to the main topic. Ji Teng asked about the theory of refining the spirit comprehension pill. Knight Sorrow had refined a few spirit comprehension pills, so he naturally answered without any problems. At this time, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's faces were blue and white. Speak. Chapter 973. What was a slap in the face? Knight Sorrow was a slap in the face, and it was a slap in the face. Normally, I would do whatever you say. You would be so arrogant just because you refined some high-grade pills. Now that I can refine pills, you can't. Knight Sorrow gave Chu Danxian an iron counterattack. One had to know that many people came to the Tianding Gate to participate in the Alchemist Conference. They didn't know Knight Sorrow, but they knew Chu Danxian. At this moment, the people who came to the Tianding Gate to participate in the Alchemist Conference were very disappointed with Chu Danquan's character. She actually arranged for such a West Radiance Peak disciple to be an assistant, and Knight Sorrow was neither arrogant nor humble. The two formed a huge contrast. Your answer is very good. If your cultivation is enough and your soul is strong enough, you can already refine the spirit comprehension pill. It doesn't matter if you fail this time, you still have a long way to go. This king, Ji Teng, invites you to join the Alchemist Guild and also invites you to be a guest at home. After hearing Knight Sorrow's answer, Ji Teng opened his mouth and made an invitation. First, it was the Alchemist Guild's invitation, and then it was Ji Teng's personal invitation. Knight Sorrow will definitely obey the orders of an elder. Knight Sorrow cupped his hands towards Ji Teng. Ji Teng laughed loudly and returned to the main seat. He was very happy because Knight Sorrow wasn't pretentious. Vice President did well this time. Looks like he recognizes you very much. The image of the Alchemist Guild is very important and needs all of us to maintain it. An elder should have the demeanor of an elder. Grand Elder Xiang nodded towards Ji Teng. This bastard actually embarrassed us. Tang Yuan said hatefully. Chu Danxian shook her head helplessly. She knew that she had lost a lot of face. Not only at the Tianding Gate, but also in the Alchemist Guild. She was also a member of the Alchemist Guild. At this moment, there were only about 10 people who passed the theory of refining the Saint King grade spirit comprehension pill. Knight Sorrow stood in front of the first long table. There is no time limit this time, but you can only refine one furnace. If you fail, so be it. Don't force yourself. After all, you all aren't peak Saint Kings. It's very difficult to refine this spirit comprehension pill. He was the vice president of the Alchemist Union, Pan Yun. He was also the president of the Big Dipper City branch. Following Pan Yun's words, the final test began. Knight Sorrow hesitated over whether or not he should try, whether or not he should refine. If he succeeded, then there would be trouble. But if he deliberately failed when he could succeed, then that would be immoral. It would be disrespectful to himself, to Ji Teng, and to alchemy. Seeing Knight Sorrow standing there without moving, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan both breathed a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that Knight Sorrow would continue to slap them in the face. After pondering for a while, Knight Sorrow made a decision. He would respect Ji Teng, respect alchemy, and most importantly, respect himself. Nodding at the furnace, Knight Sorrow checked the ingredients for the spirit comprehension pill. Vice President Ji really has good eyesight. This little guy still hasn't given up. There's no need to say anything about his persistence. It's one thing for you to provide the ingredients, but the union still has to support young people, Pan Yun said with a smile. I feel like his mentality has suddenly changed. It's as if he has let go of something, Ji Teng said as he looked at Knight Sorrow's back. Yes, his essence, energy, and spirit have changed. Xiang Taisheng also nodded. In order to succeed, Night Sorrow had to let go of some of his cultivation. It was impossible to refine a Saint King level pill with a supreme level pill flame. Night Sorrow released his cultivation to the level of a mid-level saint. He adjusted his pill flame and began refining. This little guy is suppressing his cultivation to refine a top-quality saint level pill with a supreme level pill flame. Now that he's a mid-level saint, there's hope for him to refine a Saint King level pill. Ji Teng was surprised for a moment before smiling because he saw hope. He only cared about whether or not the pill could succeed. He didn't care why Night Sorrow was suppressing his cultivation. Xiang Taisheng, who was sitting at the side, also smiled and nodded. He understood that this was the result of Night Sorrow's change in mentality. Seeing the change in Night Sorrow's cultivation, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were stunned. They didn't understand what was going on. Whether it was alchemy skills or cultivation, if Night Sorrow had shown the same, they wouldn't have bullied Night Sorrow like that. Peak Master Chu, what's going on? A middle-aged man looked at Chu Danxian and asked. Replying to Elder Tian, Danxian doesn't know. Chu Danxian bowed to the man. Sigh, your Peak Master position is unprecedented. Elder Tian sighed. He was Elder Tian Fu of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. He had given up after refining the 5-spirit pill. He was a Saint King, but he was not a Peak Saint King, so he could not refine the Spirit Comprehension pill. Seeing today's situation, Tian Fu felt that there was a need for the Tianding Gate to convene an Elder Council to discuss the West Radiance Peaks problem. Even if Chu Danxian was related to the Tianding King, it still had to be dealt with. Night Sorrow's left hand controlled a pill furnace to refine the main ingredient, while his right hand controlled a pill furnace to refine the supplementary ingredients. He was doing two things at once. Although Night Sorrow didn't have an assistant, his refining speed wasn't inferior to the other groups. After all, the competitors were refining the main ingredient while the assistants were refining the supplementary ingredients at the same time. Time slowly passed, and the 10 groups were all refining. Their main competitors were all high-rank Saint Kings, so if they were lucky, they still had some chance. Xiang Taisheng, this is a good seedling for your Tianding Gate. However, the Spirit Comprehension pill has too great of a requirement for his pill flame and soul energy. I don't know if he can persevere, said Pan Yun. I don't know, but I reckon he can. He's hiding his cultivation and is willing to be a backup. It's just that he wants to keep a low profile and bide his time. It's just that he wants to live an ordinary life. Who knows what his actual ability is? Xiang Taisheng's expression was very calm. Ji Teng and the others didn't say anything. Ji Teng also thought of another problem. When Night Sorrow interacted with him, he kept calling him elder, but not senior. There was a difference between the two. Elders were older and needed to be respected. Addressing senior required the respect of a junior. As for Night Sorrow's age, everyone knew that he was very young. This was because they could tell from his skin and eyes. It was just like a tree in front of you. With a glance, you could tell whether it was a big tree or a small tree. Time slowly slipped away. Night Sorrow's condition had always been very good. The medicinal pills were still being refined in an orderly manner. There were over 70 supplementary ingredients, and each of them was a master-grade medicinal pills supplementary ingredient. They were continuously refined in the pill furnace in Night Sorrow's right hand before entering the main furnace in his left hand. After that, there were people who continuously gave up. After all, there were many factors that affected success, such as pill flame, soul energy, the quality of the supplementary ingredients, and so on. Only 3 groups of people continued to refine pills, and their cooperation was also very good. As the sky darkened, the lights in the square lit up like it was daytime. It was normal for Saint King grade pills to take a day or even longer to refine. In the second half of the night, Night Sorrow finished refining all the supplementary ingredients and fused them with the main ingredients, nourishing and compressing them. If the pill flame and soul energy can withstand it, this furnace of pills can be refined. Tian Fu could see that Night Sorrow's alchemy skills were very profound. The only thing he lacked was his cultivation. Looking at the original chapter. The darkness passed, and a purple aura rose from the east. Night Sorrow's pill refining was also nearing completion. At that moment, Night Sorrow made a move that surprised everyone. Opening the pill furnace in his left hand, he used his right thumb to cut his index finger, and a drop of golden blood entered the pill furnace. Soon after, the pill flame under Night Sorrow's pill furnace burned fiercely. Next, a few milky white pills with a flowing red halo came out of the furnace. Speak. Chapter 974. Night Sorrow waved his sleeve and placed the pills into the jade bottle on the table, leaving one on the jade plate. What are you doing? You ruined a good batch of pills. Pan Yun roared at Night Sorrow when he saw that everyone else had finished refining their pills. Why are you in such a hurry? Let's hear what he has to say first. Elder Xiang said. If I didn't make any changes, then what I refined would be a normal spirit comprehension pill. However, it is recorded in the ancient records that the more spiritual energy there is, the better the effect of the spirit comprehension pill. Since humans are the spirit of all living things, I added a drop of blood essence. Now, this pill is a blood vein spirit comprehension pill. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards the Alchemist Union's upper echelon. Sorry, I was too excited. Now that I think about it, there is indeed such a record. Pan Yun very magnanimously cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow to express his apology. Holding Night Sorrow's pill, all the Alchemist Union's upper echelon took a look. They were all very shocked by the quality of the pill. The blood vein seemed to be alive. Including Night Sorrow, there were 4 groups that had successfully refined the spirit comprehension pill. Now that the 4 batches of pills had been refined, Night Sorrow's pill was placed aside. Of the other 3 batches, 1 was a defective product, so it was naturally eliminated. The 2 batches of pills that were selected were placed together with Night Sorrow's pill and then the rankings were determined. Night Sorrow undoubtedly won first place and received the Amethyst Pill King's medal. The other 2 were the Golden Pill King and Silver Pill King. The Alchemist Union did not let the participants leave because there was still a banquet. This was the Alchemist Union's biggest event in the past 300 years, so they had to celebrate it. The members of the Tianding Gate all came to greet Night Sorrow, and Night Sorrow politely returned their greetings. The only one that did not give Night Sorrow a good face was Chu Danxian. This was because she was very angry and her face had completely fallen to the ground. Night Sorrow did not care about Chu Danxuan's expression because it was not worth it. Chu Danxian was not worth his attention. Night Sorrow greeted everyone from the Alchemist Union, especially the Alchemist Union's Grand Elder Xiang. You know Elder Xiang, don't you? He mentioned you when we met, Elder Xiang said with a smile. My alchemy skills were taught by Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow will always remember it. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Grand Elder Xiang. After the banquet, Chu Danxian took Tang Yuan to Night Sorrow's place. Are you leaving? I have something to tell you. Night Sorrow nodded and followed her. Since Chu Danxian wanted to talk, then let's talk. After leaving the Alchemist Union, the 3 of them arrived at a tea house in Big Dipper City. Night Sorrow, what do you mean? After sitting down, Night Sorrow had just asked for a pot of tea when Chu Danxian roared, Night Sorrow, what do you mean? I don't understand what I mean. I just want to quietly cultivate my alchemy skills. Can't you understand what I'm thinking? You're a peak master, can't you take a look at yourself? Night Sorrow was not agitated, he was just expressing his thoughts. Good, you hit it well. A high-level Holy King alchemist, I was blind. Chu Danxian said angrily. At this moment, 2 men entered the tea house, then their eyes fell on Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan. Not bad, this body is very fleshy. The 2 men walked directly to Night Sorrow's table. Night Sorrow noticed that the 2 were holy kings, beginner holy kings, so they did not put Night Sorrow's group in their eyes. After all, Night Sorrow and Chu Danxian were mid-level holy kings. Tang Yuan was negligible. Get lost. Chu Danchuan's expression changed because she knew these two people. They were wanted by the Tianding Gate, they had killed people from the Tianding Gate. Ha, I prefer women from the Tianding Gate. Come with us. Ha, maybe we'll let you live, said a tall and thin man. A place like Big Dipper City was very large, some battles were not forbidden. Of course, if you attacked someone from Big Dipper City, then you were dead. In your dreams. Chu Danxian took out her sword and rushed towards the tall and thin man. But how could a holy king fight a holy king? Chu Danxian was directly suppressed and captured. The tall and thin man very wretchedly pinched the peak of Chu Danchuan's chest. Ha, not bad. A holy king fighting a holy king. You can do it too, said the tall and thin man as he pinched Chu Danchuan's chest with 2 fingers. The other person had also captured Tang Yuan. His large hands carelessly groped her a few times, and then he was about to leave, directly ignoring Yishang. In their eyes, they couldn't be bothered to kill a mid-level saint. I really can't calm down even if I want to. Night Sorrow's body flashed, and he stood at the entrance of the tea house. Brat, do you want to die? The tall and thin man looked at Night Sorrow fiercely. I don't want to kill anyone, but the 2 of you must die. Night Sorrow's aura directly erupted, and the law of nothingness suppressed the man who had captured Tang Yuan. The soul annihilation / towards the tall and thin man's spirit sea, followed by the Skysplitter Spear's Skysplitter Spear. Night Sorrow's soul annihilation / was extremely fast, and it directly slashed at the tall and thin man's spirit sea. While he was stunned, the Skysplitter Spear stabbed into his spirit sea. After killing the tall and thin man, Night Sorrow turned around and used the law of nothingness / to annihilate the other man's head. Not even a Saint Crystal was left behind. After putting away the Skysplitter Spear and taking the 2 men's storage rings, Night Sorrow threw 2 high-grade spirit stones to the tea house and then left, ignoring the frightened Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan. After a few teleportations, Night Sorrow returned to the Tianding Gate. After returning to his residence, Night Sorrow started to pack his things because he couldn't stay on the West Radiance Peak any longer. Chu Danxian didn't have any intention of waking up, so there was no point in it being awkward when they met in the future. While Night Sorrow was packing his things, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan arrived at the courtyard where Night Sorrow lived. Are you leaving? Chu Danxian asked. Yes, to avoid awkwardness. Perhaps this place isn't suitable for me. Night Sorrow said. Stay. We won't make things difficult for you in the future. Chu Danxian said. In the past, Chu Danxian felt that Night Sorrow wasn't like a man. He didn't say anything and resigned himself to adversity, so she didn't like him. After what happened just now, she understood that it wasn't that Night Sorrow wasn't like a man. It was that he didn't want to fight. In Night Sorrow's words, he wanted to cultivate quietly. Chu Danxian couldn't see through Night Sorrow's strength now. 2 low-level Saint Kings were killed by Night Sorrow with 2 shots. This was probably something that even mid-level Saint Kings couldn't do. Although she couldn't guess Night Sorrow's true strength, Chu Danxian knew that he was a real big Buddha. The big Buddha entered the small temple, but the small temple was still unwilling. It would be very embarrassing if this matter was spread out. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, I saved you not to ask you to do anything. I just feel that we're all people from the Tianding Gate. Let bygones be bygones. I also plan to leave. Night Sorrow said. The past is our problem. It has nothing to do with you saving us. Chu Danxian said. Just as Night Sorrow was about to speak, a few people came to Night Sorrow's courtyard. It was Elder Xiang and Tian Fu. Speak. Chapter 975. Night Sorrow greets Elder Xiang and Elder Tian. Night Sorrow nodded at the 2 of them. I know everything about you. I've known about it for a long time. If you don't tell me, I won't ask either. It's good to be friends, said Elder Xiang. Elder Xiang. Knight Sorrow was shocked because he couldn't see through Elder Xiang. Let me finish. You have concealed a lot of things. I didn't ask you about it, nor did I pursue the matter. That's because your objective in coming to the Heavenly Cauldron sect is very simple. You want to cultivate the art of alchemy. So, no matter how much you have concealed, even if you have committed grave sins in the past, I won't ask about it. At that moment, Elder Xiang's body transformed, turning into an old man with white eyebrows and a white beard. Disciple greets King. Chu Danxian and Tian Fu both knelt on the ground. Danxian, you're the descendant of my wife. I wanted you to have some achievements, so this clone created an identity to take care of you and give you pointers. But why don't you understand? Elder Xiang said to Chu Danxian. Danxian knows she was wrong. Chu Danxian knew that the problem was serious. Elder Xiang was the Tianding King's clone. In the past few years, I've often come to drink tea and chat with Knight Sorrow. I know what kind of person he is. If he really wants to argue with you, he can kill you with one finger. Elder Xiang sighed. Elder Xiang, Knight Sorrow didn't hide it on purpose. Other than hiding my cultivation level, everything else is true. I came from a small world and came to the Tianding Gate to cultivate alchemy. I don't have any bad intentions. Knight Sorrow felt a little guilty. He and Elder Xiang could be said to be friends despite their age difference. But now, this relationship was going to be blown away. I can understand. It's awkward for a peak holy king to go anywhere, and people will suspect you. But I don't doubt that your clone can still stay here while you cultivate. You can't improve your alchemy skills, but I can still give you some pointers on forging and formations, said the Tianding King to Knight Sorrow. Thank you, King. Knight Sorrow does have a lot of things to do, but no matter what, I won't betray the Tianding Gate. Knight Sorrow cupped his hands at the Tianding King. Ha, I'm still Elder Xiang in your eyes. Do you understand? Said the Tianding King with a smile. Of course I understand. Hearing the Tianding King's words, Knight Sorrow was stunned. That's my friend. In the future, Knight Sorrow will still live here, but you have to treat him courteously. You know what that means, right? Knight Sorrow, if you have something to do, go and do it. Remember that the Tianding Gate is your sect. This small courtyard will always be your small courtyard. I will also come here often, said the Tianding King to Chu Danxian and Tian Bin as he nodded at Knight Sorrow with a smile. We understand. Chu Danxian and Tian Bin nodded. Don't talk nonsense about my identity. Knight Sorrow also needs some peace. Don't disturb him if you have nothing to do. Go. The Tianding King waved at Chu Danxian and Tian Bin. After sending Tian Bin and Chu Danxian away, the Tianding King shouted at Knight Sorrow, Kid, make some tea. Coming, right away. Knight Sorrow smiled and got up to make tea. As they chatted, Knight Sorrow learned some things. When he came to the Tianding Gate, the Tianding King had already noticed him. However, seeing that Knight Sorrow's aura was calm, he knew that he had no ill intentions and did not stop him. He just paid more attention to him. After I left my hometown, I was worried that I would meet a King Realm cultivator and that there would be trouble. However, things were a little different from what I thought. Elder Xiang is not that scary, Knight Sorrow said with some emotion. Actually, you were not wrong. In fact, if you did not join the Tianding Gate and did not have the Tianding Gate sect oath, I would not have accepted you here. Later on, you joined the Tianding Gate. To me and the Tianding Gate, it was a great thing. A peak holy king would fight for the Tianding Gate wherever he went. You have found a treasure. Elder Xiang's face was full of joy. In fact, a force really needed a peak holy king. Knight Sorrow nodded. He could understand the logic behind it. Also, I will not hide it from you. The Alchemist Alliance's Elder Xiang is also me. I just wanted to see how long you could endure. Only when I saw you kill those two scum would I feel at ease, Elder Xiang said. After that, Elder Xiang told Knight Sorrow to do whatever he wanted. However, if he had any enmity, then he had to endure it. He would talk about it when he had the strength. What he meant was that Knight Sorrow was still young and did not need to be anxious about anything. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were not calm. They never thought that Knight Sorrow, who lived in that small courtyard, would be a peak holy king and a clone. There was only one peak holy king at the Tianding Gate, and he did not care about worldly affairs all year round. They could not even see him even if they wanted to. However, there was one lying in front of them now, and he was being bullied by them. I was still thinking of taking him in as a disciple. What a joke. Chu Danxian laughed self-mockingly. He is also too much. He insisted on Master being pinched twice before making a move, Tang Yuan muttered. Shut up. Put away your wretched bones and reflect on yourself. In the future, you will talk about this and that. Chu Danxian glared at Tang Yuan. After chatting with Elder Xiang for a while, Knight Sorrow gained some more knowledge. Then, he planned to leave. During this period of time, he had accumulated a lot of pills. He wanted to send them back to the Nine Regions world. This way, the Nine Regions world could develop faster. After sending Elder Xiang away, Knight Sorrow teleported to the Two Poles city. Then, he went through the limitless city to the city in the sky. After checking, he found that no one was in seclusion. Knight Sorrow shook the space-time pagoda and teleported everyone out. Seeing that Knight Sorrow had returned, everyone was very happy. They had not seen each other for more than 3 years. This did not include the acceleration of the space-time pagoda. A big banquet was definitely going to be held. When the news spread, many people rushed over. Everyone asked about Knight Sorrow's situation outside. After knowing that Knight Sorrow had established a foothold in the Heaven Profound world, everyone felt at ease. Then, Knight Sorrow gave some basic pills to Aoi. Sixth senior sister, these Tier 5 and Tier 6 support pills are enough for our family. Divide them into 3 portions. Medicine Valley, Night Moon Dynasty, and the Commander's Residence. Okay, I will arrange it. Aoi nodded. This is the 5-spirit pill that can increase the chances of returning to one's origin. If anyone reaches the peak of the Saint Realm, you can give one to them. Knight Sorrow took out another bottle of pills. It was the 5-spirit pill that was very precious in the Heaven Profound world. There are such pills? Wu Lingfei asked in surprise. This is a spirit comprehension pill that can increase one's comprehension ability. As the name suggests, it is a pill that can increase one's comprehension ability. It can increase one's chances of comprehending the will of the heavens and earth. Whoever has reached the peak of the Saint King realm can also come to 6th senior sister and take one. However, it will only increase one's comprehension ability by a little and increase one's chances. It mainly depends on the person. However, they can only comprehend the will of heaven and earth, Knight Sorrow said with a smile. He knew that it was still very early because in the 9-domain world camp, the only Saint Kings were him and Zhu Jillian. Zhu Jillian's path to the peak of the Saint King realm was still very long. Then what level are you at? Aoi asked Knight Sorrow. I joined a sect that specializes in pill refining. Knight Sorrow said with a smile. Yang Lei pulled Knight Sorrow's arm and shook it. What else can't you say? What level are you at? Speak. Chapter 976. Some time ago, my alchemy technique was upgraded to the Saint King grade and I can now refine Saint King grade pills. Where did these pills come from? I obtained them from alchemy in exchange for materials and then used them for alchemy to make a profit, Yishan said with a smile. Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, everyone was shocked. At the same time, they knew how hard Knight Sorrow had worked. After drinking with Knight Sorrow, many people left because Knight Sorrow still had to reunite with his family. Knight Sorrow accompanied his parents, wife, and brothers of the god-slaying squad in the city in the sky. It was very peaceful. There was a bit of commotion at the Tianding Gate because many people knew that Night Sorrow had obtained the Amethyst Pill King medal. At the same time, with Elder Xiang's approval, Tianbin announced that the West Radiance Peak had a Peak Saint King overseeing it, and it was a Saint King level alchemist. This caused the West Radiance Peak's popularity to increase by quite a bit and also made Chu Danxian blush with shame. In the city in the sky, Night Sorrow accompanied his wife on a boat on the lake. He also took a stroll around the Nine Regions world. After staying in the Nine Regions world for half a year, Night Sorrow teleported to the Everlasting City. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow did not disturb Yen Tianpe and teleported to the Two Poles City. After exiting the Two Poles City's teleportation array, Night Sorrow felt a little strange. It felt like he was being targeted by a poisonous snake. Night Sorrow stood in front of the teleportation array and pondered for a while before walking towards the teleportation array in the city. Two Poles City's situation was a little special. There were two teleportation arrays. One of the more heavily guarded teleportation array led to the Everlasting World and was heavily guarded. The other teleportation array that led to various places in the Heaven Profound World was relatively less guarded. When Night Sorrow was still some distance away from the teleportation array that led to various places in the Heaven Profound World, there was a sudden change. A man waved a long sword and charged towards Night Sorrow. King's Realm on Section Q of the most recent chapter. Night Sorrow saw through the other party's cultivation. It was a 2-star King Realm. This person was the Sky South Empire's Gong Yang Lai. He was here to wait for Yen Tianpe, but he did not find Yen Tianpe. Instead, he saw Night Sorrow. He had seen Night Sorrow the last time he returned, but he didn't have the time to make a move. Now that he had the opportunity, he wanted to kill Night Sorrow, even if it was just a clone. Night Sorrow activated his space attribute barrier and used 2 slashes in a row, dodging his opponent's domineering strike. After entering the King Realm, what Gong Yang Lai comprehended was sword intent. Therefore, his sword chi contained the will of heaven and earth, and his attacks were fierce and ferocious. Night Sorrow's speed was very fast, but Gong Yanglia's speed was also very fast. His body was like a long sword, which had an extremely strong cutting power towards space. Night Sorrow knew that he was not this Gong Yanglia's opponent. The gap between the Saint King Realm and the King Realm was simply too great. If Night Sorrow wanted to retreat, the best place to do so was the Ultimate World. As long as he entered the Ultimate World, Gong Yang Lai would not dare to chase after him. Night Sorrow's speed was fast, but Gong Yang Lai, who possessed the will of the sword, was even faster. His body moved twice to block Night Sorrow's path of retreat, while at the same time, a sword chi cut through space and fell on Night Sorrow's chest. Night Sorrow waved his space splitter spear to resist. With a loud explosion of energy, Night Sorrow's body was sent flying. His chest was cut open by the sputtering sword chi, but the wound was instantly repaired by the energy in his body. Being injured made Night Sorrow angry. He no longer tried to escape and instead rushed forward, using his space splitter spear to display his space splitter spear to meet Gong Yanglia's sword. With a crisp sound, Night Sorrow was pushed back, but Gong Yang Lai was also pushed back by Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's power of Desolate's and Desolate's law had accelerated the depletion of Gong Yanglia's sword chi, so he had to bear 70% of the energy. After being blasted back by Yi Chang, Gong Yang Lai was stunned for a moment. While he was still in a daze, Yi Chang rushed up again and used Void Extreme Kill once more. Since he couldn't run away, he might as well fight. At this time, Night Sorrow's supreme attribute and high attribute's power were displayed. He was always able to destroy a portion of Gong Yanglia's attack before facing it head-on. In addition, Night Sorrow's body was tyrannical. Even if his dantian and internal organs were shaken, he could still quickly attack. Gong Yang Lai was puzzled. He had never seen such a ferocious Saint King cultivator like Night Sorrow. The continuous clashes caused Night Sorrow's chi to become unstable and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The meridians in his arms were also damaged. However, Gong Yang Lai was also not in a good condition. His hands were trembling and his face was pale. The main reason was that Knight Soro's offensive power was too strong. His strength was suppressed by Knight Soro's law and he could only use 70% of his power. He was unable to block Knight Soro's path. Gong Yanglai was blasted away, opening up a path for Knight Soro to leave. Knight Soro flashed and fled. At this time, a yellow light with gravity suppression fell on Knight Soro's body. An armored man appeared out of thin air and attacked Knight Soro with his blade. 2 King Realm cultivators have come to my 2 Polarity City to kill this king, right? A wave of water appeared and wrapped Knight Soro to dodge the armored man's blade. Yen Tianpe appeared and directly used his energy to pull Knight Soro to his side. This is a wanted criminal of our Tian-Nan dynasty. Flame World Lord, please do not interfere, the armored man said. He was the general of Tian-Nan dynasty, Yuan Qianba. You need 2 King Realm cultivators to kill a Saint King Realm cultivator. Who are you trying to fool? You think the 2 of you can pose a threat to this king? You think too highly of yourselves. Yen Tianpe narrowed his eyes and sized up the 2. Flame World Lord, your actions will affect the friendship between our 2 sides, Yuan Qianba said. Do we have any relationship? Go back and tell your Emperor Shang Tianfeng that if more sovereign kings from the Tian-Nan dynasty come to my 2 Polarity City, then I'll also pay a visit to your Tian-Nan dynasty. My 2 Polarity City has always been safe here, and no power has dared to touch it. If your Tian-Nan dynasty is so arrogant, then come and try it, said Yen Tianpe coldly. We will definitely kill him, Gong Yanglai said. Trash 2-star King Realm cultivator can't even defeat the soul avatar of a Saint King Realm cultivator. If you are not trash, then what are you? What are you trying to say in front of this king? Scram! Yen Tianpe roared. At the same time, a sparkling longsword appeared in his hand. Let's go, Yuan Qianba pulled the ashen-faced Gong Yanglai and left 2 Polarity City. Knight Soro, are you alright? Yen Tianpe looked at Knight Soro and asked. I'm fine. I just received some shock and my meridians are damaged. Knight Soro said. In fact, his injuries were very serious. Gong Yanglai's sword chi was supported by his sword intent, so its destructive power was extremely strong. 2 Polarity City has my soul crystal, so I would be able to sense it when there was a violent energy fluctuation. Although I arrived a little late, I was still able to make it in time. The guy who appeared later didn't make a move at first, but if he did, you wouldn't have been able to keep your soul avatar, Yen Tianpe said. What's the cultivation of the one who appeared later? Knight Soro asked. 4-star King Realm cultivator. In fact, they came here to wait for Uncle. I reckon that they also want to investigate Uncle's strength. They don't have good intentions. However, if they want to declare war on me, Uncle can give up on 2 Polarity City, but they will have to pay 10 times or 100 times the price, Yen Tianpe coldly snorted. Speak. Chapter 977. It's still the matter of exchanging hostages that caused them to hate Uncle. I'm the one who brought trouble to Uncle, said Knight Soro apologetically. You're thinking too much. They were the ones who asked Uncle to arrange the exchange of hostages, and then felt that it was unfair. This is because they have a problem with their conduct. To put it bluntly, they're scum. They even sent 2 King Realm experts to guard us. Uncle didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to return safely, said Yen Tianpe. Yen Tianpe might not be able to kill both Yuan Qianba and Gong Yanglai, but he could definitely kill one of them. However, he couldn't act according to his temperament. There were still many people from the Wuji realm in the Sky Profound world, and there were still some forces developing in the Sky Profound world. If he directly attacked today, it would be the same as declaring war on the Sky South Empire, and the consequences would be very serious. My strength isn't enough, said Knight Soro sorrowfully. You're already not bad. No one would believe that you could fight a 2-star King Realm expert to this level. Also, you have to be careful. These people from the Sky South Empire are truly too shameless. 2 King Realm experts killing a Saint King. If this matter were to spread, it would be very embarrassing, but they still did it, said Yen Tianpa. Uncle, then I'll take the teleportation array and leave. Be careful. It's best if your main body doesn't come out from the Wuji realm. The Sky South Empire has at least 3 despicable King Realm experts, said Night Sorrow. Alright, then go. Yen Tianpa nodded. He was looking forward to Night Sorrow's growth. Once there were 2 King Realm experts in the alliance, the situation would change, and they wouldn't be so passive. The 2 Polarity City was rather far from the Heavenly Cauldron City, but the teleportation array was developed. Night Sorrow used a dozen teleportations and returned to the West Radiance Peak from the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain. When Night Sorrow returned to his courtyard, Elder Xiang was sitting and drinking tea. Kid, where did you run off to? You're injured. What happened? Elder Xiang was originally happy to see Night Sorrow, but then he frowned. I'll heal first. I'll tell Elder Xiang later. Night Sorrow had to refine the sword Qi Gong Yang Lai left in his body. Elder Xiang nodded and sat aside. He could see that there was something wrong with Night Sorrow's body, and it was not a small problem. After Night Sorrow meditated, he began to force the sword Qi out of his body. At the same time, he began to refine it. Looking at the sword Qi leaking out of Night Sorrow's body, Elder Xiang frowned. He could tell that it was a sword Qi that contained the will of heaven and earth, which meant that the one who injured Night Sorrow was a King Realm cultivator. Original P version, Night Sorrow had spent 6 days meditating to recover. He had used the laws of nothingness and the laws of time to refine the sword Qi and force it out of his body. It had taken him 6 days to do so. One could imagine how powerful the sword Qi, which contained the will of the world, was. Sorry to keep you waiting, Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow changed his tattered robe and said. Which King Realm cultivator attacked you? Elder Xiang asked angrily. An enemy from my hometown. It's nothing. They still haven't killed me. Elder Xiang, don't worry. They don't know I'm at the Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow said. What are you talking about? Since you're a member of the Tianding Gate, then the Tianding Gate will naturally take care of you. Elder Xiang glared at Night Sorrow. Elder Xiang, listen to me. This enmity is too big. I'll deal with it myself. Night Sorrow did not hide anything from Elder Xiang. He directly told him about what had happened between him and the South Sky Dynasty. Shameless. 2 King Realm cultivators attacked you. When you want to fight, just call me, said Elder Xiang. My main body is still comprehending the true meaning of heaven and earth. Once it's effective, my clone can go deal with them. Elder Xiang, don't worry. It's not good to drag the Tianding Gate into this. After all, there are so many disciples in the sect, Night Sorrow said. Letting the Heavenly Cauldron sect fight it out with the Tiannan dynasty isn't good for the sect. However, when do you plan to fight? Sovereign Heavenly Cauldron won't participate, but Elder Xiang can, Elder Xiang said with a smile. Night Sorrow understands. Thank you, Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Elder Xiang. Since your main body is cultivating, your clone should focus on studying auxiliary skills. You've reached a bottleneck in alchemy. You can study formations and forging, said Elder Xiang. I'm going to change my way of thinking. My clone won't study formations, said Night Sorrow after thinking for a moment. Don't be silly. Formations are very important. Even if your cultivation base is not high enough, sometimes you can rely on formations to turn defeat into victory. Elder Xiang glared at Night Sorrow. Elder Xiang, you might not know this, but I have another soul clone. However, due to some reasons, it can't go out. It's cultivating in forging. Transporting materials is troublesome. I'll let that soul clone cultivate in formations while Elder Xiang and I cultivate in forging, explained Night Sorrow with a smile. 2 soul clones. Not bad. Kid, you're really something. Then let's do it. You can cultivate here in peace. Elder Xiang nodded in satisfaction after hearing Night Sorrow's words. Elder Xiang truly liked Night Sorrow and wanted to nurture Night Sorrow into a talent. That was why he didn't hold back. If there was a selfish motive, it would be to nurture another King Realm cultivator for the Tianding Gate. In addition, Elder Xiang was also very shocked by Night Sorrow's combat strength. Even a King Realm cultivator couldn't kill him. It was conceivable that if Night Sorrow was lucky enough to enter the King Realm, he would definitely be able to crush cultivators at the same level. Elder Xiang gave Night Sorrow some formation and forging books for Night Sorrow to use. However, he said that it wasn't that he couldn't teach it to others. If anyone wanted to learn, they could come to the Tianding Gate to join the sect and follow the rules of the Tianding Gate. No matter how much Elder Xiang valued Night Sorrow, the foundation of a sect was its inheritance. Therefore, this couldn't be discounted. Elder Xiang left. He felt that Night Sorrow entering the Tianding Gate was an opportunity for the Tianding Gate. No matter what happened in the future, as long as Night Sorrow didn't die, then the Tianding Gate wouldn't be destroyed. As a disciple of the Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow had a small world. When Night Sorrow became a King Realm cultivator, then the Tianding Gate would have two kings. One of them would be the ruler of a world. His original body wouldn't die and his avatar would be able to fight the world. Who wouldn't be afraid? Night Sorrow went out again and gave the formation books to his avatar in the Heaven Sealing Hall. He also gave the Spirit Comprehension pills to his original body. This meant that his original body and his two avatars were both cultivating. It was just that his original body mainly cultivated his combat strength. He still didn't have a clue about comprehending the true intent of the heavenly Tao, but Night Sorrow wasn't anxious. He didn't lack time now. The 9 regions world was stable, so he could slowly cultivate. If 10 years wasn't enough, then 100 years, if 100 years wasn't enough, then 1,000 years. In the profound sky world, King Realm cultivators were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. If it was so easy to appear, then there wouldn't be such a situation. When he was researching equipment refinement, there were also disciples of the West Radiance Peak that came to seek guidance on alchemy. Night Sorrow didn't refuse anyone. As long as they were willing to learn, then he was willing to teach them. Elder Xiang had a broad mind, and so did he, Night Sorrow. Slowly, Night Sorrow's reputation in the West Radiance Peak grew higher and higher, and there were often elders of the Tianding Gate that came to pay their respects. In the past, these elders of the Tianding Gate didn't visit the West Mountain. Firstly, it was because Chu Danchuan's level was low, and secondly, they didn't dare to flatter her. Now, Night Sorrow could do it. He would receive anyone that came. His avatar wasn't in closed-door cultivation. Even if he was refining equipment or pills, when someone came, he could communicate with them after he finished dealing with the matters at hand. Speak. Chapter 978. Elder Xiang often came over to chat and drink tea with Night Sorrow. Only a limited number of people knew about his identity. Only Night Sorrow, Tian Bin, Chu Danxian, and Tang Yuan knew. They wouldn't tell anyone because it would make things very inconvenient for Elder Xiang. Only Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan didn't talk to Night Sorrow. They didn't have the face to come to Night Sorrow's place. Besides, they were also a bit afraid of Night Sorrow. Putting aside Tang Yuan, who was only at the 5th rank, Chu Danxian was a mid-level saint. The gap between her and Night Sorrow, who was a peak saint king, was too great. Yishan didn't walk around the West Radiance Peak, let alone the other peaks of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. He often went out to trade for materials. Regardless of whether he was refining pills or refining weapons, he had to deal with a portion of it to trade for materials and support his proficiency in refining weapons. After staying at the Tianding Gate for a year, Night Sorrow's refining skills had risen to the saint tier. In other words, as long as he had the materials, he could refine saint artifacts. However, refining spirit artifacts was still fine. Refining saint artifacts required very high-grade materials. The reason why Yi Shang's artifact forging skills had improved so quickly was mainly because his clone in the Heaven Sealing Grand Hall had also made some achievements in array formations. Forging weapons and defensive artifacts required array formations to increase their offensive and defensive power. Knight Sorrow had accumulated a lot of refining materials in the 9 regions world. He would use them to refine tools and then trade them for other materials. This way, he could earn some profit and maintain his proficiency in refining tools. On this day, Elder Xiang brought the Tianding Gates Merit Hall's Elder Wang to Knight Sorrow's place. Elder Wang, Knight Sorrow can refine mid-level and high-grade saint artifacts. If the sect needs them, you can bring the materials to Knight Sorrow to refine them. Knight Sorrow, you won't charge a fee, right? Elder Xiang asked Knight Sorrow. Naturally. Knight Sorrow knew that Elder Xiang was giving him a chance to improve his proficiency in refining tools. Then I'll have to trouble you, Master Knight. Elder Wang cupped his hands towards Knight Sorrow. There were not many people in the Tianding Gate who could refine sacred artifacts. Most of the time, they were still cultivating. It was still very difficult for many disciples to obtain sacred artifacts. Elder Wang, please don't say that. Knight Sorrow is a disciple of the Tianding Gate. Being able to do something for the Tianding Gate is more than welcome. Besides, this is also helpful to me. Knight Sorrow said with a smile. Knight Sorrow, you don't have any status in the sect. Let me think about it. Elder Xiang said after thinking for a while. Elder Xiang, you know that there are some things I don't care about, Knight Sorrow said. I know you don't care. Well, I'll think about it. You don't have to worry about it, Elder Xiang said. He understood Knight Sorrow's indifferent attitude, but he still needed the respect of others. If a peak Saint King didn't obtain respect, then the world would be in chaos, and it would be the fall of the rules. On this day, Knight Sorrow was guiding the disciples of the West Radiance Peak in Pill Refinement when Elder Tianbin arrived at his small courtyard. Elder Tian is here. Sit, I'll watch him finish refining this cauldron of medicinal pills. Knight Sorrow nodded to Tianbin. Tianbin cupped his hands towards Knight Sorrow before sitting down and waiting. He really admired Knight Sorrow. Even if someone was asking for guidance on the refinement of low-grade medicinal pills, Knight Sorrow would still guide seriously, and it could be said that he was meticulous. Thank you, Master Knight. After this disciple finished refining the medicinal pills, he bowed to Knight Sorrow, and then he left behind a jar of good wine before leaving Knight Sorrow's small courtyard. The disciples of the Tianding Gate all knew that Knight Sorrow guided others and even helped others refine medicinal pills and weapons for free, so they felt apologetic and would bring some good wine and tea when they came. Elder Tian, tea or wine? Knight Sorrow looked at Tianbin and asked. Ha, wine is fine, Tianbin said with a smile. Knight Sorrow took out 2 wine bowls and opened the wine jar left behind by that disciple, and then he poured a bowl for everyone. Every time I come here, I'm always drinking wine. I'm really ashamed, Tianbin said with slight embarrassment. Then bring 2 jars of good wine next time, Knight Sorrow said. He was very casual with whoever he chatted with now. Look at the original version, Chapter 1 I came here this time because I have something to tell Master Knight. The sect master has come out of seclusion, and there's going to be a meeting of elders and protectors tomorrow. Master Knight wants to participate as well. This is Elder Xiang's idea, Tianbin said. Tianbin said. He knew that with Yi Shang, the sect leader's words were not necessarily effective. However, Yi Shang would definitely respect Elder Xiang's words. Elder Xiang said that Knight Sorrow will definitely be there on time. Knight Sorrow nodded. It's probably nothing much. Elder Xiang probably wants you to get to know the sect master and the various elders, Tianbin said. After chatting with Knight Sorrow for a while, Tianbin left. Knight Sorrow thought for a while and felt that it would be good to get to know him. After all, he was a disciple of the Tianding Gate and had to live in the Tianding Gate for a long time. After resting for a night, Knight Sorrow changed into a loose moon-white robe. Just as he was about to go out, Chu Danxian came to the small courtyard. Today is a meeting of the sect's higher-ups. I'm here to invite Master Knight, Chu Danxian said. The word master behind the surname was a respectful title for cultivators with attainments in alchemy, equipment refinement, and formations. The members of the Tianding Gate now addressed Knight Sorrow as Master Knight. Alright, there's no need to be reserved. Let bygones be bygones. I'm doing very well in the West Radiance Peak. Knight Sorrow looked at Chu Danxian and spoke. He was also considering Elder Xiang's good intentions towards Chu Danxian, so he didn't want Chu Danxian to be too embarrassed. Chu Danxian nodded. She was very ashamed in her heart because she had gone too far when Knight Sorrow had just entered the sect. When Chu Danxian brought Knight Sorrow into the main hall, everyone in the main hall stood up. During these past few days, these elders had more or less asked Knight Sorrow for help, so they were very respectful to Knight Sorrow. A man in a blue robe who was sitting on the main seat stood up as well. I'm Yan Huifeng. I've been in seclusion for many years and neglected Master Knight. I'm very sorry. Yan Huifeng was the only Peak Saint King before the Tianding Gate. He had always been seeking to break through to the King realm, so he didn't really deal with the sect's matters. This time, he came out of seclusion because of Elder Xiang. Gate Master is too polite. Knight Sorrow has been doing very well at the Tianding Gate. All the elders and Elder Xiang have taken good care of Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow cupped his hands at Yan Huifeng. Alright, Master Knight, please sit. Yan Huifeng nodded. Come here. Elder Xiang, who was sitting on the first chair on the left, waved at Knight Sorrow. This isn't appropriate, Knight Sorrow said. After all, he was just an ordinary disciple at the Tianding Gate. No problem. Elder Xiang smiled and nodded. Master Knight, please sit. Yan Huifeng nodded at Knight Sorrow again. After thinking for a while, Knight Sorrow sat down beside Elder Xiang. Then, Yan Huifeng asked about the situation at the Tianding Gate in recent years, and some of the elders reported back. Next, we'll discuss Master Knight's problem. Master Knight won the title of Purple Crystal Pill King at the Alchemist Conference. This is the glory of the Tianding Gate. In addition, Master Knight is also a Peak Saint King. I'm sure everyone knows this. Cultivating talents, valuing talents, and respecting talents are the foundation of the Tianding Gate, so if anyone has any opinions, please speak up. Yan Huifeng nodded at Knight Sorrow, and the topic fell on Knight Sorrow. Speak. Chapter 979. Brat, don't say anything. Don't be so useless. Old Xiang looked at Knight Sorrow who was about to speak and directly spoke to stop him. Knight Sorrow was startled and didn't say anything. Old Xiang was always looking out for him. The elders in the main hall were all Saint King level elders. Their intention was for Yishang to enter the Elder Pavilion and become an elder as well. Ha, Teacher Knight's situation is the same as mine. Even if it's just a clone, it's probably focused on alchemy, formations, and refining. As an elder, it wouldn't have the time to manage things. We can't delay Teacher Knight's progress. What I mean is for Teacher Knight to be the Tianding Gate's protector elder, said Yan Huifeng. Hearing Yan Huifeng's words, the elders were startled for a moment before nodding. Peak Saint Kings really did have many things to do. After the sect meeting ended, Old Xiang stood up. Teacher Knight has only been at the Tianding Gate for a short time, but his alchemy, forging, and formation skills are all very strong. The main thing is that he has his own understanding and isn't troubled by some of our Tianding Gate's old problems. You can also ask him for advice. Does Teacher Knight have a problem? No problem. Just go to my place and take the good wine and tea. Knight Sorrow smiled. Everyone in the hall cupped their hands towards Knight Sorrow. They knew that Knight Sorrow was just joking. What's the value of wine and tea? Tell me, how's your main body? Asked Old Xiang. I've had some comprehension recently and have entered seclusion. Oh right, Old Xiang, do you know where I can display the time-attributed will of heaven and earth? Knight Sorrow asked. He knew that as a king-level expert, Old Xiang was very knowledgeable. Don't bite off more than you can chew. If you want to control the time-attributed will of heaven and earth, you'll need to restrain him in terms of attributes. He's a fire attribute, while Yan Tianpe is a water attribute. Speak. Chapter 980. Shang Tianfeng was a 5-star king, and Yan Tianpe was a 5-star king. Shang Tianfeng comprehended the mystic fire true intent, while Yan Tianpe comprehended the black water true intent. Their attributes were suppressed, so Shang Tianfeng could only swallow his anger. Even if he brought Yuan Qianba and Gong Yang Lai with him, it would be useless. Gong Yang Lai was a 2-star saint, and he couldn't help much. Emperor, that Yan Tianpe is too arrogant. Can we join forces with others to kill him? At most, we'll take a portion of the Wuji world and 9 regions world, Yuan Qianba said. If we want to kill him with a 100% chance, we'll have to invite a high-grade king. We can't afford the price of a high-grade king, and we don't have a 100% chance of killing a mid-grade king. If we can't kill him, the consequences will be severe, Shang Tianfeng said. If the old emperor returns from his travels, all these won't be a problem, Yuan Qianba said after thinking for a while. Glancing at Yuan Qianba, Shang Tianfeng left the Sky South Palace. Actually, Yuan Qianba regretted it after saying that. The old emperor's departure was a stain on Shang Tianfeng's reputation, a flaw in his character. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Sky South dynasty's emperor was Shangxi. In order to pursue a higher realm, he didn't care about worldly affairs. He wasn't even in the Sky South dynasty. The Sky South dynasty's affairs were managed by Crown Prince Shang Tianfeng and Princess Shang Tianfei. Later, Shang Tianfeng started a war and eliminated his sister's family, as well as his brother-in-law's family. Shangxi, who had rushed back after learning of her daughter's death, slapped Shang Tianfeng and left the Tiannan Empire, never to appear again. 20,000 years later, Shang Tianfeng followed the rules of the empire and became the emperor of the Tiannan Empire after the emperor's absence for 20,000 years. This wasn't a secret in the Sky South dynasty, but no one mentioned it. Today, he was slapped in the face, and Yuan Qianba said it with emotion. After Night Sorrow arrived at the Sky South dynasty's White Dragon City, he walked around the city and used his soul power to investigate. After discovering that there was only one high-grade Saint King and 2 Saint Kings in the city, he decided to take action. After returning to the teleportation formation and taking the teleportation crystal, Night Sorrow killed his way to the city lord's residence. Yi Shang did not hide his cultivation. When he arrived at the city lord's mansion, the 3 saint rulers came out. Lord, this isn't a place. This isn't a place. This isn't a place. City Lord. Crown Prince Tang was Crown Prince's territory. Was Crown Prince? Usually, Crown Prince wasn't here. Whether or not I can behave atrociously isn't something you can decide. Use your strength to speak. After Yi Shan finished speaking, he waved his space-splitting spear and charged at them. Chapter. There was a difference in cultivation and attributes. Coupled with Yi Shang's powerful body, the 3 saint rulers could not stop Yi Shang's slaughter. It only took a moment for Yi Shang to kill them all. 1 high-grade Saint King and 2 mid-grade Saint Kings fell in front of Night Sorrow. After collecting their weapons, storage rings, and saint crystals, Night Sorrow entered the city lord's residence. His soul power found the city lord's warehouse, and after a frenzied sweep, he flew back to the teleportation formation. Night Sorrow didn't know which teleportation crystal was for his next target, Sky Flame City. He casually placed a teleportation crystal, set up a spirit explosion array, and started the teleportation. The spirit explosion array would explode after Night Sorrow left, blowing up the teleportation formation. Night Sorrow did this to prevent the other party from reporting. After 2 teleportations, Night Sorrow arrived at Sky Flame City. He repeated his old plan and killed 2 more Saint Kings. After taking their personal resources and the city lord's resources, he went to the next city. Night Sorrow robbed one more city than his original target before quietly leaving and returning to the Tianding Gate. The Tianding Gate was very quiet. After Night Sorrow returned, he went to his courtyard to sort out his harvest. When Night Sorrow finished sorting out the last storage ring, Old Xiang came. Your killing intent and battle intent are very strong. You fought before, Old Xiang said to Night Sorrow. He felt that Night Sorrow's aura was different from before. I've fought a few battles. Recently, I've been running low on materials. So, I went to the South Sky Dynasty and swept through 4 cities. I stole some resources from their city lord's mansion. These can support my cultivation and artifact forging, Yishan said. You're too bold. The Sky South Dynasty is probably in a mess right now. Damn it, a Saint King actually dares to provoke our Sky South Dynasty. He really doesn't want to live anymore. Yuan Qianba's face was full of anger. He will return to the 9 regions world, so entering the 2 extreme city of the Wuji world is a place he must pass through. Sovereign kings are not allowed to go. General Yuan, send a few peak stage Saint Kings from the Fierce Wind Army over. Since he has shown himself, kill him at all costs, Shang Tianfeng, who was sitting in the main guard, ordered. I understand. Yuan Qianba nodded. Chun, send people to put up a portrait of him in our Sky South Dynasty. Raise our vigilance, and put out a large bounty for him. Shang Tianfeng made a series of arrangements. The news of the Sky South Dynasty putting out a bounty for a peak Saint King spread. Some people clapped their hands in joy, feeling that Night Sorrow had done well. He was not afraid of power. Some people planned to look for Night Sorrow and get a reward. All cultivators were lacking resources, especially some independent cultivators. Doing some bounty missions was their source of resources. Speak. Chapter 981. In the profound heaven world, there were very few king realm cultivators, but there were many peak saint kings. However, Night Sorrow was one of the more famous ones. He had massacred 4 cities of the Tiannan Empire. This was not something an ordinary person would dare to do. If he was targeted by the Tiannan Empire, he would have to hide for the rest of his life. Once he did, he would be killed by the king of the Tiannan Empire. Night Sorrow had been refining pills for half a month when Elder Xiang returned. He had a serious expression. They have issued a bounty on you, so the problem is more serious. After all, there are many people in the Tianding Gate who know about you. I can guarantee that most people will not leak the secret. However, if there is someone who is blinded by greed, you will be exposed, Elder Xiang said. Night Sorrow stood up and said, I didn't consider it thoroughly. This way, when I leave the Tianding Gate, they can just say that I'm not here and there won't be any problems. Shang Tianfeng must have the courage to come to the gate. Elder Xiang waved his hand to stop Night Sorrow. But this will affect the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow said. Elder Xiang thought for a moment and said, No, I will deal with this. Besides, the Tianding Gate is too peaceful. It's good to be a little nervous. We have to be vigilant in times of peace. If it continues to be peaceful, it will not be good for the sect. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and nodded. The situation is critical. Elder Xiang, you have to tell me. I have my principles. Elder Xiang nodded and left. Night Sorrow continued to refine pills. What Night Sorrow didn't know was that Elder Xiang had returned to his original appearance after leaving the West Radiance Peak. Then, he called for a sect meeting. He didn't tell Night Sorrow about this. King. In the Tianding Gates Hall, everyone who saw Elder Xiang's true appearance bowed. At this moment, he was not Elder Xiang. He was the Tianding King. Sect Master, the Tianding Gate will be preparing for battle. Elder Xiang gave an order to Yan Huifeng. Yes, do we need to gather the disciples outside? Yan Huifeng asked. No need. Elder Xiang shook his head. King, what happened? Is the sect going to enter a defensive or offensive state? Tian Bin asked. As for what happened, there's no harm in telling you. It's teacher Yi who challenged 4 cities of the Tian Empire and killed some of their saint kings. He's now wanted by the Tian Empire. Don't say that he's the one who caused the trouble, because the enmity between teacher Yi and the Tian Empire is too great. Teacher Yi didn't want to get involved with the Tianding Gate, so I asked him to stay, said Elder Xiang. Then Mr. Xiang told him about Knight Soro's situation. Sovereign King, you don't need to explain. Master Yi is from the Heavenly Cauldron sect. Let's not talk about how we can't fight for him. However, if anyone comes knocking on our door, we must stand together against them, Yan Huifeng said. Originally, teacher Yi wanted to leave the Tianding Gate. He didn't want the Tianding Gate to get involved in this mess. But our Tianding Gate hasn't experienced any storms for many years, and our unity has declined. We need this kind of situation to stimulate us, said Elder Xiang. Teacher Yi is really fierce. He's such a peaceful person, but he challenged 4 cities of the Tiannan Empire. How domineering, said Tian Bin as he waved his arm. Original V, then that's it. Don't tell teacher Yi about this for now. Just prepare for battle in secret, said Elder Xiang. In fact, there would always be brave men with great rewards. The South Sky Dynasty still received news that there was a member of the Heavenly Cauldron sect called Knight Sorrow. In the Tiannan Palace, Shang Tianfeng sat in the main seat, bathed in the light of the fire. Shang Zhenchun, who was in charge of the scouting operation, told him about the situation with Knight Sorrow. Heavenly Cauldron sect. He actually joined the Heavenly Cauldron sect. This matter won't be easy to handle, Shang Tianfeng mumbled softly. Emperor, if the Tianding Gate's Knight Sorrow is the 9 regions world's Knight Sorrow, then the Tianding Gate is in the wrong. We can definitely go and ask for him, said Yuan Qianba. Do you think the Tianding Gate will hand him over? Even if they're in the wrong, they'll lose face if they hand him over. That Xiang Tianding won't compromise, said Shang Tianfeng. Then we'll just endure it, said Gong Yanglai angrily. Among the holy kings that Knight Sorrow had killed, 2 of them were members of the Gongyang family. The Gongyang family had suffered a great loss. General Yuan, go to the Tianding Gate and negotiate with them. We're willing to pay a great price. After thinking about it, Shang Tianfeng made his decision. The Tiannan Empire was very powerful, but the Tianding Gate was also a power with a long history. The Tianding King's heaven-bearing cauldron was a stabilizing force. It wasn't something that any power could easily provoke. When Yuan Qianba arrived at the foot of the Tianding Gate mountain, Elder Xiang appeared. Lord King, why have you graced my Tianding Gate with your presence? I am Yuan Qianba from the Tiannan Empire. I've come to pay a visit to the Tianding King on the orders of my ruler. Yuan Qianba's posture was very low because he felt a powerful pressure. Then let's talk in the main hall. Elder Xiang nodded. He couldn't refuse someone who had come to pay a visit. In the main hall, Yuan Qianba said a few polite words before speaking his purpose. Ah, how can I say that for no reason? Someone from the Tiannan Empire has come to pay a visit. Go back and tell your ruler that coming to the Tianding Gate is impossible. Even if Knight Sorrow did something, that's between you. The Tianding Gate's face isn't something that just anyone can slap. Elder Xiang directly expressed his attitude. It could be said that he didn't give Yuan Qianba any face. The Tiannan Empire is willing to pay a price. Yuan Qianba stood up. Gate Master, see the guest out. Elder Xiang directly waved his sleeve. Tianding King, you have to understand that the Tianding Gate's disciples attacked my Tiannan Empire's 4 cities. We can't just let this matter pass. If you insist, it won't be good for the Tianding Gate, said Yuan Qianba. You came to scare me. Ha, I want to see how it won't be good for me. Elder Xiang sneered. Yuan Qianba looked at the Tianding King and then left the main hall. He was helpless about this result. He didn't dare say anything more excessive. If he angered Elder Xiang, he wouldn't have a good ending. Do you really think the Tiannan Empire is the overlord of the profound heaven world? Elder Xiang waved his sleeve and left the main hall. Knight Sorrow was still refining pills. He didn't know what was going on outside. When Elder Xiang arrived, Knight Sorrow had just finished refining a cauldron of spirit comprehension pills. Clapping his hands, Knight Sorrow brewed a pot of tea. Elder Xiang, you're a bit angry. Who made you unhappy? No, it's just a bastard who disgusted me. Elder Xiang smiled. Knight Sorrow and Elder Xiang drank tea and chatted. Knight Sorrow's refining was very smooth. He didn't need to ask anything. What cultivation technique are you cultivating? If you have time, you can take a look at the Tianding Gate's sacred cauldron scripture. Speak. Chapter 982. Elder Xiang, what are you talking about? Knight Sorrow was shocked. I don't know what scripture you are cultivating, but you can compare it with the scripture of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. You can gain more insights from your current foundation and increase your combat strength, Old Xiang said to Yishang. Not that. Elder Xiang, what scripture are you talking about? Knight Sorrow asked again. What's wrong with the Holy Cauldron scripture? Elder Xiang looked at Knight Sorrow in surprise. He didn't understand why Knight Sorrow was so excited. My sect's scripture is the Holy Cauldron scripture, Knight Sorrow said. Tell me, is it the same? Elder Xiang was also shocked. Knight Sorrow recited the first part of the Holy Cauldron scripture. Then Elder Xiang recited the second part. What's going on? I created the Holy Cauldron scripture. How can you know if you haven't seen it? Elder Xiang looked at Knight Sorrow in shock. How can Elder Xiang's scripture be passed down in the 9-domain world? Knight Sorrow was also very puzzled. This meant that the Medicine Valley and the Tianding Gate had a connection. How many years has the Medicine Valley's sect in the 9-domain world been passed down for? Elder Xiang asked. It's less than 10,000 years old. I don't know if it's not recorded, Knight Sorrow said. Could it be that one of the disciples of the Tianding Gate went to the 9-domain world and created the gate? Elder Xiang said. The two of them then discussed and felt that it was very likely that one of the disciples of the Tianding Gate went to the 9-domain world and created the sect. Elder Xiang, what level can the Tianding Gate's Holy Cauldron scripture reach? Knight Sorrow asked after explaining the situation of the Medicine Valley's Holy Cauldron scripture. King, the level of the Medicine Valley is a bit low. How about this? I'll go to the 9-domain world with you and see the records of the Medicine Valley. If there's a connection, the Tianding Gate can help the Medicine Valley develop, Elder Xiang said after thinking for a moment. RZ original initial K initial J Knight Sorrow nodded. He also agreed with this idea. It could be said that the Medicine Valley was a branch of the Tianding Gate. As for whether the Medicine Valley was willing to recognize the Tianding Gate, it depended on the decision of the higher-ups of the Medicine Valley. Old Xiang went to the Heavenly Cauldron Palace and told Yan Huifeng that he was going to visit the 9 regions world. Yan Huifeng was also very interested, and he wanted to go to the 9 regions world with him. Thus, the three of them set off for the 9 domains world. The Sky South Empire's men who wanted to kill Knight Sorrow were in the 2 extreme city, but with Elder Xiang, whose cultivation base could not be seen through, they did not dare to make a move. Knight Sorrow and Elder Xiang arrived at the 2 extreme city. The Yanwu Absolute notified Yan Tianpe. After all, the king's crossing of the border was a big matter. Yan Tianpe soon arrived at 2 extreme city. Rare guest, Yan Tianpe greets you. Yan Tianpe laughed and cupped his fists towards Elder Xiang. Flame World Lord is too polite. This seat intends to visit Knight Sorrow's world, so I would like to disturb the Flame World Lord. Elder Xiang said. Absolute, you idiot. I already said that Knight Sorrow is this seat's nephew, and the people he brought are all guests. Why do you still need to notify him? Yan Tianpe scolded Absolute before bringing Knight Sorrow and the rest to Limitless City. Yan Tianpe and Lin Ruoxu warmly received Knight Sorrow, Elder Xiang and Yan Huifeng. After which, Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang and Yan Huifeng to the city in the sky. After exiting the city in the sky's teleportation array, Elder Xiang looked at Night Sorrow and said in astonishment, "Virtuous body. You have a virtuous body in the 9 regions world." "Yes, I might have some virtuous body in the 9 regions world." Night Sorrow nodded. Night Sorrow's return was a joyous occasion. Night Sorrow knew that Elder Xiang and Yan Huifeng didn't like crowds, so he brought his wife to greet them before letting them stay for the time being. After spending 2 days with his family, Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang, Yan Huifeng, his 3 wives and Xue Shi to the Medicine Valley. Night Sorrow brought them directly to the Pill Cauldron main hall. After which, he nodded towards Chu Ling Shao who was on duty and asked him to call all the higher-ups of the Medicine Valley over. After the Great Elder, Hua Yunpeng, Yu Yangyu and the rest arrived, Night Sorrow introduced Elder Xiang and Yan Huifeng to everyone. He also told them about the Holy Cauldron scripture. After listening to Night Sorrow's introduction, Hua Yunpeng and the rest were shocked. Once it was confirmed that the Medicine Valley's inheritance came from the Tianding Gate, it would be a big deal. "Don't be nervous. I won't force you to do anything. I just heard that the Holy Cauldron scripture was passed down in the 9 regions world, so I came to take a look. Also, here is a list of all the names of our disciples in the past 20,000 years. You can check if your founder is among them," Elder Xiang said. "Many of the ancient records of our Medicine Valley have disappeared, but the names of the alchemy ancestor and the founder of the sect still exist. The alchemy ancestor is Xiang Jun, and the founder of the sect is Master Yao Qing," the Great Elder said. "Yao Qing. It's Yao Qing." Yan Huifeng stood up in surprise. "What's wrong?" "Sect Master, you know Yao Qing?" Elder Xiang asked Yan Huifeng. "I know him. He joined the sect at the same time as I did. He wasn't very focused on cultivation, but he had a special interest in alchemy. That was 20,000 years ago. He went out to collect herbs and never appeared again. I investigated his disappearance and found that he went to the Tiannan dynasty to collect the Cloud Spirit fruit. At that time, we were only elite disciples. The Holy Cauldron scripture could only help us reach the saint level." Yan Huifeng flipped through the list as he spoke. Because there was a specific number of years, it didn't take him long to find the record of Yao Qing. Yan Huifeng took the list and showed it to everyone. "My surname is Xiang. It seems that there is no mistake. How about this? Don't feel pressured. If you need any help, the Tianding Gate will support you. You can also continue to cultivate at the Tianding Gate. The inheritance will be passed down to you," Elder Xiang said. Although it was confirmed that the Medicine Valley was a branch of the Tianding Gate, Elder Xiang didn't want to force the Medicine Valley to acknowledge their ancestors. After all, the Medicine Valley was already an independent sect. Although Elder Xiang thought so, the first rule of the Medicine Valley's inheritance was to respect one's teachers. Since Yu Yangyu and the others knew where the inheritance came from, they naturally wouldn't deny it. Everyone bowed to Elder Xiang and respectfully called him Ancestral Master. "Very well. Night Sorrow, if you hadn't entered the Tianxian world, the Tianding Gate wouldn't have known that they had lost an inheritance. Now is a good thing. As for what the Medicine Valley plans to do next, the Tianding Gate will fully support it. Sect Master will communicate with everyone. Night Sorrow, accompany me to walk around. Today is really a good day," Elder Xiang said with a smile. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew some things. Yan Huifeng, Yu Yangyu, and the others would communicate well. Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang to the Supreme River Space, the Underworld, and the Profound Mysteries realm. With him, Elder Xiang could naturally enter and exit the 9 domains world. The 3 domains are very peaceful. You have governed them well. No wonder you have so much power of virtue, Elder Xiang said to Night Sorrow as he looked at him. I just want the people around me, I want everyone to live a better life. Night Sorrow really didn't deliberately seek power of virtue. You don't understand. Power of virtue is hard to find, even in the Tianxian world. If you have some merit in the Tianxian world, then your body of virtue will be triggered and the Tianxian world will recognize you, Elder Xiang said. Speak. Chapter 983. Let nature take its course. I don't know how to proceed either, Night Sorrow said with a nod. Sometimes, letting nature take its course is the closest to the way of heaven, Elder Xiang said with a smile. When Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang to Sky City, he found that Yan Huifeng and Medicine Valley's higher-ups were all in Sky City. Master, why is everyone here? Night Sorrow asked in surprise. Night Sorrow, we've discussed it. Medicine Valley's heritage is at the Tianding Gate, so it's natural for them to acknowledge their ancestors. Sect Master Yen said it's up to you, Yu Yang Yu said. Don't look at me. I can't handle these things well. It's up to everyone to decide. Night Sorrow really wasn't good at handling these things. King, what do you think? Yan Huifeng looked at Elder Xiang. You're pushing everything to me. Their heritage is mine, just like the Tianding Gate. It's up to you to arrange it, Elder Xiang glared at Yan Huifeng and said. Elder Lu, let's set up a peak at the Tianding Gate called Danding Peak. Medicine Valley will develop there. The resources and treatment that the Tianding Gate gave to other peaks will also be given to Medicine Valley. We'll also pass on our heritage to them, Yan Huifeng said. Thank you, Sect Master. Thank you, Sect Master. Yu Yang Yu and the others bowed to Elder Xiang and Yan Huifeng. Night Sorrow was happy to see this result. It was a new chapter for Medicine Valley. The Medicine Valley of the Nine Realms world can't be neglected. After all, Medicine Valley is a heritage for the Nine Realms world. It can give many young people and children opportunities, Night Sorrow said. Night Sorrow, don't worry. We won't do that, the Great Elder said. After sending Elder Xiang, Yan Huifeng, and the people of Medicine Valley off, Night Sorrow stayed with his family. He and his wives went for a walk in the sacred hall. Night Sorrow also needed to rest. His main body also felt the clone's relaxation. In addition, Night Sorrow's clone was no different from his main body, except that he couldn't do some things with his wives. In addition, everyone's cultivation had improved greatly in the past few years when Night Sorrow left. After resting for half a year in the Nine Realms world, Yu Yang Yu told Night Sorrow that the Medicine Valley had officially established itself at the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow ended his rest and took his 3 wives and Xue Shi to Wuji City through the teleportation array. Yen Tianpo was afraid that Night Sorrow and the others would be intercepted, so he sent Night Sorrow and the others into the teleportation array. In fact, everyone knew that the Tiannan dynasty had arranged people in Two Poles City. They were no match for King's cultivators. Night Sorrow wasn't afraid either. Yen Tianpa naturally didn't want Night Sorrow to be in danger, so he just sent him off. Tianding Gate. Danding Peak was the name of the West Jade Peak, which was very close to the West Radiance Peak. Yu Yang Yu and the others had even specially built a courtyard for Night Sorrow at a place with a bamboo forest. The layout was similar to Night Sorrow's bamboo forest peak in the Medicine Valley, and it was called the Bamboo Grove Courtyard. Night Sorrow arrived at the West Radiance Peak and apologized to Chu Danxian and the others because he would be staying at the Bamboo Grove Courtyard on Danding Peak in the future. The members of the West Radiance Peak were very reluctant to see Night Sorrow leave. Night Sorrow had helped them a lot in the past few years, and it could be said that Night Sorrow had a good relationship and reputation on the West Radiance Peak. Night Sorrow smiled as he looked at the group of people that were sending him off. I'm not leaving the Tianding Gate. Do all of you see Danding Peak on the opposite side? There's a Bamboo Grove Courtyard there. I'll be staying there in the future, and all of you can look for me at any time. The disciples of the West Radiance Peak were at ease when they heard Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's heart was at ease when he arrived at the Bamboo Grove Courtyard. It was a special kind of comfort. With his 3 wives and Xue Shi by his side, Night Sorrow wasn't living alone anymore. Night Sorrow, you can actually bring the Spacetime Pagoda over and let the members of the God-Slaying Squad cultivate while going out to train. They need to broaden their horizons as well, said Yang Lei. That's good too. Now that the 9 regions world is stable, I can bring some people to the Tianding Gate. It's safe here, and they can cultivate here. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that it was indeed feasible. Night Sorrow then returned to the 9 regions world and brought his parents, sister, the members of the god-slaying squad, Wu Lingfei, and Zhu Jiuyun to the Tianding Gate's Standing Peak. When Night Sorrow returned to the 9 regions world, the Sky South Empire's troops guarding Two Extreme City had already retreated. They didn't have the chance to make a move the previous few times, but they knew that Night Sorrow was vigilant and went back to report it. Night Sorrow refined pills and refined artifacts every day. The disciples of the Tianding Gate came to ask for pointers or help with refining pills and artifacts, and Night Sorrow didn't refuse any of them. Elder Xiang also frequently came to Night Sorrow's place to chat and drink tea with Night Sorrow and talk about the current situation in the Sky Profound world. Elder Xiang couldn't help Night Sorrow's main body with his cultivation. Not only could Elder Xiang not help, no one could help. He needed to comprehend on his own. If he didn't comprehend, he could only be stuck here forever. There were many peak saints in the Sky Profound world, and there were even some Daos. He needs time. He's still young, and it's not rational for him to fight with the other party like this. Yan Huifeng was also worried about Night Sorrow's safety. Speak. Chapter 984. While Night Sorrow was drinking tea, Elder Xiang came to his courtyard. Elder Xiang, you're here. I made some good tea this time, Yishang greeted him. You're a picky eater. If you can say it's good tea, then you have to try it, said Elder Xiang as he sat down. Heart-cleansing tea. It can wash away the dust in a person's heart. I got it in the 9 realms world, but I usually don't drink it. I only drank it after I started killing. Night Sorrow poured Elder Xiang a cup of tea. Elder Xiang took a sip and closed his eyes. Good tea. It's really good for the soul. After drinking a pot of tea, Elder Xiang told him why he had come. He didn't want Night Sorrow to go to the Tiannan dynasty again. After all, it was too dangerous. I think they'll restrain themselves. Elder Xiang, you don't have to worry. I'm only fighting with my clone. I don't think they can afford it, said Night Sorrow. You don't have to worry too much. The Tianding Gate isn't made of paper. If they want to fight with the Tianding Gate, then let them. It's not like the disciples of the Tianding Gate can't fight. They also need to go through some hardships, said Elder Xiang. I understand what Elder Xiang means. What I want to tell Elder Xiang is that my fellow disciples in the Heavenly Cauldron sect are all my brothers. Perhaps some of them have never interacted with me before, but our brotherhood still exists. I don't want to see others die because of the trouble I caused. When you need me to fight, I will stand at the very front. Yi Shan expressed his attitude. All right. If you need to fight, I'll come find you. Elder Xiang was very pleased that Yi Shang had such an attitude. A sect or a force needed people like Yi Shang, who had the determination and perseverance to fight for the sect to the end. After Elder Xiang left, Wu Lingfei, Xuexi, and the others came to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow smiled and told them why Elder Xiang had come. This is the spirit of a top sect. They can protect their disciples, said Yang Lei. 6th Senior Sister, 9th Senior Sister, First Feather, how is your comprehension of the laws going? Night Sorrow asked. Afterward, the 3 women told Night Sorrow that their comprehension of the laws was more or less complete. They would be able to make a breakthrough later. This made Night Sorrow feel very relieved, because after entering the saint level, his 3 wives did not need to worry about their lifespans. Don't be hasty. Take your time. We're not in a hurry. You guys have plenty of time, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Over the next few days, Night Sorrow continued to refine defensive equipment. He planned to fully equip his wife, Wu Lingfei, and the others. A few days later, Night Sorrow finished the task. This was the efficiency of a saint-level tool refiner. However, it was much more difficult to refine a saint-level tool refiner. Now, Night Sorrow still lacked some auxiliary materials. On this day, just as he was cultivating the heavenly wasteland killing spear, Old Xiang came. While Night Sorrow was brewing tea, Old Xiang looked at Night Sorrow and said, "You know about the longevity limitless pill, right?" "I know. It's a Peak Saint King medicinal pill. It's on the same level as the Spirit Comprehension pill, but the main ingredient, the longevity limitless fruit, is very hard to find. It's almost never seen the market," said Night Sorrow. The longevity limitless pill's value was terrifying. No other medicinal pill could compare to it. It could not increase one's cultivation base or comprehension ability, but it could increase one's lifespan. In other words, even if a person had never cultivated before, after eating it, they would have a lifespan of 10,000 years. It could also solve some of the body's hidden problems, such as innate or acquired disabilities. Recently, the limitless territory has appeared. The most precious treasure there is the longevity limitless fruit. Think about it. If you want stability, don't go. If you think it's worth it, go take a look. A single longevity limitless pill can be sold for an astronomical price at an auction house. It can be exchanged for countless spirit stones and resources. It'll be very helpful to your growth, said Old Xiang. I'll definitely go. In truth, Night Sorrow had long since thought about the longevity limitless pill. It was just that the main ingredient, the longevity limitless fruit, was a legendary ingredient, so he couldn't get his hands on it. Night Sorrow had learned about the longevity limitless pill because Old Gu's father needed it. The longevity limitless pill could replenish 10,000 years of lifespan, so Night Sorrow didn't have to worry about Old Gu's lifespan. In addition, his severed arm could be regrown, so he didn't need to enter the Saint Realm. Heaven-defying treasures had the ability to change laws. This is an introduction to the limitless territory. It's quite detailed. Take a look. Old Xiang gave Night Sorrow a map and a book about the limitless territory. Then he left Night Sorrow's little house in the bamboo forest. As he studied it, Night Sorrow understood what the limitless territory was like. First appearance. Every time the limitless territory appeared, it would appear at the intersection of the heaven mystic world and the firmament world. It would appear once every 90,000 years. Every time it appeared, it would be accompanied by a storm of blood. This was because everyone needed the longevity limitless fruit. Furthermore, there were many treasures in the limitless territory. It was a place to seek opportunities. There was only a 1-year limit. With the attraction of the heaven mystic world and the firmament world, it would stay between the two worlds for a year. It could even be said that King Realm cultivators wanted to enter, but they couldn't. The limitless territory was a special space. Once a King Realm cultivator entered, the space would collapse. Thus, even if a King Realm cultivator wanted to enter, they could only wander around the spatial turbulence outside. It was impossible for them to enter. Even if a King Realm cultivator didn't enter, it wouldn't be safe. This was because there were people entering from every world. Thus, Night Sorrow was still cautious. Furthermore, there were King Realm beasts in the limitless territory. It wasn't strange for them to kill a Peak Saint King. While Night Sorrow was studying the map of the limitless territory, Night Sorrow's 3 wives came over. Looking at the map and books in front of Night Sorrow, they picked them up and took a look. The limitless territory is very mysterious. It can actually produce the longevity limitless fruit, Yang Lei said in surprise after taking a look. Night Sorrow, are you going to the limitless territory? Aoi asked. She was meticulous and wasn't as careless as Yang Lei. Yes, the limitless territory will open soon. I plan to go and take a look. In the heaven mystic world, we don't have much accumulation. Resources are also a problem. As our cultivation increases, we need more resources. The main thing is that the longevity limitless fruit is very important to Father Gu, Night Sorrow said. Sikong Chuyu and the others didn't say anything because this involved Father Gu. Father Gu was the most important person in Night Sorrow's heart. It was useless to persuade him. Night Sorrow would definitely go. What you need to cultivate is your mental state, so don't work too hard. If you want to return to the 9 regions world, just tell me. If I'm not here, you can go back by yourselves. The people of the South Sky Dynasty don't recognize you. They will treat you as people from the limitless territory and won't easily make a move, Night Sorrow said. The girls nodded. They were still worried about Night Sorrow. The dangers of entering the limitless territory weren't just cultivators killing each other. There were also high-level beasts in the limitless territory. The risk was very high. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.